Chapter 495 Strength of 1,000 Kilos. Chapter 495 Strength of 1,000 Kilos. Su Wenqing's memory of Shifeng was still fresh in his mind. Previously, not only had Shifeng defeated the university's #1 fighter, Zhang Luowei, but he had also earned high praise from Chen Wu. Su Wenqing had not expected Shifeng to actually appear at this place right now. It can't be, right? Chen Wu was similarly stunned upon seeing Shifeng. As he recalled, Shifeng was very amazing but had yet to reach the level of using internal force. At this moment, however, Shifeng was actually participating in this competition. It was truly shocking. When both sides stood in the arena, Lei Bao and Shifeng contrasted sharply. Lei Bao wore a black vest that placed his bronze muscles on full display. His muscles were not bloated, but instead were sleek like a cheetah's, giving others the feeling that his muscles were packed full of power. His disheveled hair coupled with his bestial aura and aquiline gaze made him seem exactly like a wild, ferocious beast. People would not dare to get even half a step closer to him. On the other hand, Shifeng looked just like your average university student. He possessed neither a sharp, sword-like aura nor a tall, robust body. He gave others the impression that he was completely harmless to both humans and animals, that there was no need for even the slightest bit of vigilance towards him. The battle between the two was a competition without any suspense. It was just like a fight between a ferocious lion and a cute little rabbit. There was absolutely no point to this battle at all. Suddenly, it was as if cold water was poured over the hot passion of the audience members. Wasn't this a match between two masters? Why is there an ordinary university student here? That's right, even if Big Dipper is trying to promote Master Lei Bao, can't they at least invite a slightly decent expert? What's the point of inviting a youth that hasn't even grown all his hair yet? Even I can take care of that little brat with ease. The audience promptly burst into a heated discussion. They all felt that Big Dipper's chairman, Xiao Yu, was lacking sincerity. However, seated at a corner of the spectator stands, Zhang Luowei and Lan Hailong were both stunned when they saw this scene. How could he be a martial arts master? Zhang Luowei looked with eyes full of disbelief at Shifeng standing in the arena. Even until now, he still took to heart the defeat Shifeng had dealt him. During this period, he had trained constantly and had even sought meticulous guidance from Chen Wu, all in order to have his revenge on Shifeng. Yet, now that Shifeng had appeared before him once again, the man had actually become a martial arts master already. However, when Zhang Luowei looked at Shifeng's opponent, Lei Bao, a smile appeared on his face. He had heard plenty about Lei Bao's deeds from Chen Wu. Lei Bao was a fierce man who did not know how to show mercy. All those who had met with him in official matches had suffered heavy injuries at the very minimum, and some were even crippled. Hence, nobody was willing to compete with Lei Bao. When those in the world of martial arts heard the name of Lei Bao, even top-tier masters would try to avoid him as much as possible. Nobody wished to destroy their own future by competing with Lei Bao. Originally, Zhang Luowei had thought it was some daring expert who had come to compete with Lei Bao this time around. Now, however, it would seem that Shifeng was just a hot-headed youth after all. Yet, before anyone could voice out their complaints, the host of the competition immediately hyped up the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, before the start of this competition, the two masters will do a small warm-up, allowing everyone to clearly see just how powerful the two masters are. Now, let's welcome our two masters to showcase their strengths. As the host was saying so, some staff members pushed out a punching power testing machine into the arena. The punching machine was the latest model, and it was intended to test Lei Bao's and Shifeng's punching power. The first to take the test was Shifeng. Shifeng was very interested in regard to this test. He wanted to know just how much he had improved during this period of time. Standing before the punching machine, Shifeng took a proper stance before abruptly sending a punch forward. After piercing through the air, his fist made a loud boom when it landed on the target. The punching machine shook from the impact. Immediately, the numbers on the punching machine began rising madly. In just a moment, the numbers had broken past the 200 kilograms mark. A short moment later, the numbers rose to 320 kilograms, this value was already within the standard of professional fighters. In the end, the punching machine displayed a value of 401 kilograms. This result was almost comparable to those of well-known fighters of Jin High City. However, it was still significantly lower than that of the city's top professional fighter, Chen Wu. This Shifeng is amazing. With this kind of punching power, it is no wonder Zhang Luowei was not his match. Su Wenqing laughed with satisfaction as he stroked his white beard. If he already possesses such strength at such a young age, he might be able to catch up to you, Master Chen Wu, in just a few more years. Chen Wu's punching power record could be said to be the record for the entire Jin High City. Chen Wu's punching power was 453 kilograms, a value that made ordinary people stare in admiration. With just a single punch, Chen Wu could bend even a thick metal board. Let alone the fleshy human body, Chen Wu could even turn a durable maglev car into a pile of scrap metal in a short amount of time. Meanwhile, Shifeng was just in his early 20s, so he still had great potential for growth. He would have no problem surpassing Chen Wu's punching power record. Old man Su, you jest. This is but the result little brother Shifeng has achieved using only his physical strength. If he used internal force, he would have surpassed my record. Moreover, I have also heard that little brother Shifeng has long since beaten my record. It seems the newest record right now is 576 kilograms. Chen Wu laughed bitterly. Yes, that's right. This record was indeed set by Master Shifeng. Xiao Yu nodded. It seems that Master Shifeng did not use his full power because he wishes to conserve his strength. Internal force places a heavy burden on the body. Since he needs to face off against Master Lei Bao in a moment, he naturally has to conserve his physical strength. Chen Wu explained. Nobody present knew just how demanding internal force was on a person's body. Even internal force experts would not casually use it. Otherwise, they would be lying on the floor, unconscious, in just a few moves. Hence, only a fool would use internal force in this test right now. Seated in the back row of the VIP room, Xiao Ruoxi was very elated upon seeing Shifeng's test result. Only she knew how much Shifeng had improved. Previously, Shifeng's test results without using internal force were less than 300 kilograms. After not seeing him for a period of time, Shifeng's punching power had actually exceeded the 400 kilograms threshold. If Chen Wu were to find out about this improvement, he would definitely jump up in shock. However, as the occupants of the VIP room were conversing with each other, Lei Bao started his test. Ha! Letting out a shout, Lei Bao transformed his palm into a fist, a boom resounding as he struck towards the punching machine. The instant Lei Bao's fist landed on the target, the spiraling force borne by the fist pierced the target. Lei Bao's fist ended up landing directly on the steel plate behind the target. Pung! The durable steel plate was dented right away, and even the entire punching machine itself was knocked backwards. Meanwhile, cracks also started appearing on the marble floor beneath Lei Bao's feet, as if it had been struck by a sledgehammer. Ding! 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 The punching machine rang continuously. Most people in the spectator stands might be unfamiliar with this sound. However, for those who frequently trained and tested themselves, this was a sound that garnered their reverence. Because this sound was none other than the prompt for a record being broken. At this moment, however, nobody in the spectator stands was reacting to the sounds produced by the punching machine, because everyone was completely stunned by Lei Bao's destructive punch. Is he even human? Zhao Ruoxi's alluring eyes widened, her attention fully focused on the value displayed by the punching power testing machine. 656 kilograms. This record was far above the one Shifeng had set. Sure enough, Lei Bao really is a martial arts prodigy. Even the strength he has achieved through training is incomparable to that of ordinary people. Chen Wu said, shocked. Chapter 496 Tiger Roaring. Chapter 496 Tiger Roaring. Lei Bao's punch had stunned the entire assembly hall. A moment later, a loud round of applause, as well as gasps of admiration, filled the room. When this punch landed, it was as if a small car had struck the punching machine. In particular, if the steel plate were swapped with a human being, the end result would be horrifying. Master Chen Wu, is this the power of internal force? Zhao Jianhua could not help but ask. This was his first time seeing such destructive force from another human being. No. Chen Wu shook his head. He then explained. I've previously said that using internal force places a heavy burden on the body, and internal force experts would not casually use it. The same holds true even in a battle. Master Lei Bao achieved this result before us right now without using internal force. This is just his normal strength. This is also the reason why I am so shocked. Despite being called the fighting genius of Jinhai City, Chen Wu's maximum punching strength was only 453 kilograms. In comparison, a martial arts prodigy like Lei Bao had managed to achieve a punching power of 656 kilograms without even using internal force. He truly possessed a strength of 1,000 kilos. The gap between them was like the difference between heaven and earth. Little brother Shifeng will not have an easy time in this match. Chen Wu grew more alert as he looked at Lei Bao. Master Lei Bao is famous for not knowing how to hold back. Even when I sought him out to exchange pointers back then, he ended up breaking 3 of my ribs. I had to stay in the hospital for over a month for a full recovery. Now, he has even surpassed his strength from back then. If little brother Shifeng is not careful, it is quite possible that he will be hospitalized for over half a year, and there might even be residual damage. Upon hearing Chen Wu's words, Zhao Ruoshi, who was seated at the back of the VIP room, grew even more anxious. Though she wished to stop this competition right now, she was powerless to do so. Both parties were martial arts masters. Since both sides had long since agreed to this match, and even the invited audience had already arrived, things had passed the point of no return by now. Shifeng's normal punching power was just slightly over 400 kilograms. Even if he used internal force, he would at most reach the level of Lei Bao when the latter was not using internal force. However, just how taxing was internal force? On the other hand, Lei Bao's every action carried the strength of 1,000 kilos. He could send an endless stream of these powerful blows. It was highly unlikely that Shifeng would emerge victorious in this competition. In truth, not even Xiaoyu had expected the gap between the two to be so wide. If he had known about this earlier, this competition would be absolutely unnecessary. It seems that I can only make amends with Shifeng after this event is over. Xiaoyu had never expected Lei Bao to be so strong. With the addition of Lei Bao, Big Dipper Training Center could definitely become one of the top training centers in the country. As for Shifeng, although he was a young genius, he was still significantly inferior to a current powerhouse. However, it remained necessary to maintain a good relationship with such a talent. In the arena, Lei Bao looked at the destroyed punching machine, feeling very satisfied with his own masterpiece. He then shifted his chilling gaze to Shifeng. You're very good. Despite being so young, not only have you mastered internal force, but you are also able to behave so fearlessly while standing before me. You will certainly have a promising future. If not for my need to become Big Dipper's head instructor, I would not mind letting you have this competition. Although Lei Bao's voice was not particularly loud, everyone present in the assembly hall could hear his every word clearly. The arrogance in his tone was also unwavering, and one could not help but want to submit to him, heart and soul. I have always looked fondly upon martial arts geniuses. I won't try to bully you in this match. If you can last 10 moves against me, this match will be considered your victory. Listening to Lei Bao's words, everyone present found themselves admiring the man's magnanimity. Sure enough, a martial arts master would not bully those weaker than themselves. The audience members became even more reverent towards Lei Bao now. What if I lose? Shifeng calmly asked, completely unmoved by Lei Bao's words. You really are smart. Lei Bao laughed. If you lose, take me as your teacher. I will pass on all my skills to you. I assure you that you can definitely surpass me in the future. This should be a worthwhile trade, right? Before this fight was arranged, Lei Bao had already heard about Shifeng. He knew that Shifeng did not have a master, so Shifeng should be a self-taught martial arts master. In other words, Shifeng was a true genius. Martial artists were very picky when it came to accepting disciples. After all, they would only be humiliating themselves if they chose a weakling as a recipient of their legacies. Hence, martial artists would always carefully choose their disciples. Meanwhile, a youth like Shifeng who had already learned how to use internal force at such a young age was naturally a prime candidate for a disciple. Just before, even Chen Wu had been tempted to take on Shifeng as his disciple. Unfortunately, Shifeng's current strength was no longer beneath him, so he had to dismiss this idea altogether. Lei Bao, however, was different. He was significantly more powerful than Shifeng, so he naturally had the qualifications to become Shifeng's master. Everyone was stunned upon hearing Lei Bao's words. Master Lei Bao was trying to solicit a personal disciple. Many in the spectator stands immediately turned to look at Shifeng in envy. A single glance was all it took to tell that Lei Bao was a top-tier martial arts master. It even was highly possible for him to become a martial arts grandmaster in the future. Countless people out there wished they could become the personal disciple of a generation's grandmaster. Yet, such an opportunity had actually landed in Shifeng's lap right now. Why is it him? At this moment, Zhang Luo's eyes became bloodshot. Originally, he had been taking delight in Shifeng's misfortune. Now, however, his heart was filled with an indescribable sense of jealousy. With a generation's grandmaster carefully tutoring and nurturing him, Shifeng would definitely soar to become a dragon among men. In the future, he might even be able to vie for the championship of an international fighting competition. At that time, Shifeng would definitely become the focal point of the entire world. What did the guild leader of some random guild in God's domain amount to? Even if it was the guild leader of a first-rate guild, they would be far from comparable to a world-class fighter. These people were all monsters who had surpassed the limits of the human body. Countless corporations would be willing to sponsor them. The money and status they could obtain were beyond the reach of a guild leader inside a virtual reality game. Ha! So this was your intention all along? Shifeng could not help but laugh. He could tell that Lei Bao was wholeheartedly trying to take him in as his disciple. Okay, I'll agree to your conditions. However, if I defeat you in 20 moves, you have to promise to do one thing for me as well. How about it? Suddenly, the entire assembly hall went silent. Has he gone mad? He's actually provoking a top-tier master. He's literally insane. Not to mention the guests sitting in the spectator stands, even the crowd inside the VIP room was stunned. They had not thought that Shifeng was actually so daring. Ha! As expected of the person I have set my sights on. You certainly have a domineering spirit. Lei Bao had started laughing loudly as well. The more he looked at Shifeng, the more he liked the young man. Ever since his debut into the world of martial arts, nobody had dared speak to him so arrogantly. Now that he was 28 years old, he was only a hair away from reaching the rank of Grandmaster. Unfortunately, even until now, he had yet to find a person to pass his legacy to. Meanwhile, he had only come to this place after hearing news about Shifeng. Otherwise, how could a small-time training center like Big Dipper invite a true god like him? Saying so, both parties stepped into the ring. Upon the referee's order, the match officially began. Watch this! The instant the match started, Lei Bao strode forward, rushing up to Shifeng like a furious gale. Immediately after, his fist made a turn as he did a half-step collapsing punch. There were no fanciful movements in Lei Bao's technique. His punch was simple and straightforward, yet fast and fierce. When sending out his punch, Lei Bao's body had also released the thundering roars of tigers. Peals of thunder echoed throughout the assembly hall. The sounds were absolutely breathtaking. Tiger roaring, muscle and bones singing. Shifeng was stunned. Lei Bao had actually trained both the inside and outside of his body to the peak. Chapter 497 Initial Mastery. Chapter 497 Initial Mastery. The instant Lei Bao sent out his fearsome punch, Shifeng hurriedly leaned back like an agile monkey. He did not attempt to block Lei Bao's fist at all. When Lei Bao's fist was only centimeters away from its target, Shifeng abruptly contracted his abdomen, narrowly avoiding the attack. Lei Bao's punch carried with it a fearsome shockwave. Even through a layer of clothing, Shifeng could feel his abdomen receiving part of the shockwave. If that violent force landed directly on his body, the consequences would be unimaginable. The members of the audience were stupefied once again. Tiger roaring? How is this possible? Seated in the VIP room on the second floor, Chen Wu saw Lei Bao's punch, and his eyes glowed brightly and his heart thumped madly. The ecstatic expression on his face made it seem as if he had just seen a peerless beauty. Tiger roaring? The spectators beside Chen Wu echoed his words in confusion. However, seeing Chen Wu's excited look, they could guess that it was a very powerful technique. Chen Wu nodded. With great excitement, he explained. Only when a person has managed to merge both their internal and external power can they produce that kind of sound. One could say that it is the proof that one has trained their body to its limits. Normally, only experts at the Grand Master level are capable of such a feat. I never imagined that Master Lei Bao had actually managed to achieve it so soon. With this, it won't be long before Master Lei Bao breaks through his limits and becomes a generation's Grandmaster. Countless martial arts masters had trained themselves desperately, yet still failed at combining their internal and external forces. On the other hand, before even reaching the age of 30, Lei Bao had already succeeded in pushing his body to its limits. Now, he could utilize internal force freely, applying it to his every action. He fit the term martial arts prodigy to AT. Even if Shifeng knew how to use internal force, when faced with Lei Bao, someone who had pushed his body to its limits, he had zero chance of victory. While Chen Wu explained, the roars of tigers filled the arena. Lei Bao's every move was incomparably fierce, alternating between collapsing punch and cannon punch one after another. Speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness, he made full use of all three of these aspects. After images of Lei Bao's fists filled the ring. Step by step, his violent attacks pressed Shifeng harder and harder. If Shifeng stopped evading these attacks, only a tragic end awaited him. Hence, Shifeng had no choice but to keep retreating. Although Lei Bao held an absolute advantage in this fight, Shifeng had yet to receive a single blow even until now. So strong! With each step Shifeng retreated, he could clearly feel the power behind Lei Bao's punches growing ever so slightly. Likewise, his fists were also speeding up. If not for Shifeng's brain activity increasing, significantly improving his five senses and his control over his own body, Lei Bao would have defeated him in just a few moves. Even so, Shifeng could only last a few more moves right now. He would still end up defeated soon. It was no wonder Lei Bao was so confident that he could defeat him in 10 moves. In the next moment, Lei Bao's body tilted forward slightly as he sent a half-step punch at Shifeng's face. At this point, he had already cornered Shifeng. There were no more paths of retreat available to him. Suddenly, Shifeng's body swayed as he took the initiative to welcome this punch. Is he trying to get himself killed? Lei Bao was dumbfounded. Meanwhile, outside the ring, everyone in the spectator stands thought they could foresee the ending scene of this competition. Many already envisioned the instant Shifeng's head exploded into tiny little pieces. Some of the more timid women, who could not bear to watch this gruesome scene, had immediately shut their eyes. It's over! Chen Wu could not help but exclaim. Lei Bao's punch could dent even a sturdy steel plate. Yet Shifeng was actually using his head to meet Lei Bao's fist. The instant Shifeng's head was about to collide with Lei Bao's iron fist. Whether it was Shifeng's breathing or heartbeat, both seemed to have stopped completely. Before Lei Bao could react, he discovered that his fist had actually brushed past Shifeng's face, only scratching the young man's cheek and leaving behind a small bloodstain. Meanwhile, Shifeng's fist had somehow landed on Lei Bao's abdomen already. Lei Bao only felt a huge thrust on and pain in his abdomen. Although he wanted to use the power in his muscles to dispel this force, he suddenly discovered that he actually could not, even in the slightest. Like a steel needle, this force penetrated directly into his body. In the next moment, his entire person went flying across the ring. When his body landed heavily on the floor, he immediately coughed out a mouthful of blood. At this point, he could no longer continue fighting. For a time, everyone in the assembly hall was completely flabbergasted. Originally, this competition's outcome should have been Lei Bao's victory. Yet, such a sudden reversal had actually happened. Nobody in the audience had even managed to get a clear view of what had happened. They had only seen Lei Bao's fist penetrating Shifeng's head. In the next moment, Shifeng's fist was already on Lei Bao's abdomen, and in the end, Shifeng was the victor of this competition. Master Chenwu, you are an expert yourself. Can you tell us what exactly happened just now? Su Wenqing was extremely curious about this situation. Everyone else seated near Chenwu promptly turned to look at the martial arts master as well, hoping to obtain an answer from him. After some time passed, I have no idea either, Chenwu said as he shook his head. The two's exchange had simply been too fast. Their speeds were already beyond what he could respond to. Hence, not even he knew what Shifeng had done exactly. He only knew that Lei Bao's lethal punch had not landed on Shifeng. However, who was Lei Bao? Back then, the situation had already reached the point of no return. Even if Lei Bao did not wish to kill Shifeng, he could do nothing to change the sudden development. Yet, Shifeng had actually managed to evade Lei Bao's punch. Even more inconceivably, Chenwu had not even seen when Shifeng punched. Even Lei Bao had failed to react to the attack in time. You! At this moment, Lei Bao managed to pull himself back to his feet, and his eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at Shifeng, who was currently standing proudly and calmly in the ring. Others might not have seen what had happened before, but when Lei Bao carefully tried recalling it, he immediately came to a realization. However, Lei Bao simply could not bring himself to believe that a student barely in his 20s had actually broken past his body's limits and taken that first step ahead of him. Although it was only for an instant, Lei Bao had seen it very clearly. Midway through Shifeng's charge, Shifeng's body had actually accelerated once more. At the moment of life and death, Shifeng had actually managed to evade his fist and, in turn, landed a punch on him. While the audience had their heads in the clouds, trying to recall the scene where Shifeng defeated Lei Bao, Zhang Luowei and Lan Hailong, seated in the spectator stands, were both frozen with fear. Their hearts were also filled with immense regret. For a moment, they looked like they had aged more than a dozen years. After this battle, everybody would know about Shifeng. His future would also be limitless. As of this moment, he was already a big shot of Jinhai City. Meanwhile, Zhang Luowei, as Shifeng's fellow student, had actually tried to take action against Shifeng. Looking back at his past actions, he had simply been seeking his own death. As for Lan Hailong, if he had known before that Shifeng was actually so powerful, he would have long since given his all to recruit Shifeng. He definitely would not have feuded with Shifeng over a measly Ling Failong. At this point, both Zhang Luowei and Lan Hailong entertained thoughts of getting rid of Ling Failong. If not for that damnable Ling Failong's little tricks, they would have long since climbed onto Shifeng's massive boat and ridden along his waves of success, instead of being enemies with Shifeng as they were right now. Luowei, tomorrow you and I will both go and meet with Shifeng. If we do not dispel the rage in his heart, our future will be grim, Lan Hailong whispered helplessly. Indeed. Fortunately, we only have a minor dispute with Shifeng. The main problem is Ling Failong. After we return, we must make a clean break with him. It would be best if we taught Ling Failong a lesson as well. Perhaps this might even make Shifeng forget about all the earlier unpleasantries. Although Zhang Luowei was extremely reluctant, he still nodded his head heavily in reply to Lan Hailong's words. Chapter 498 Overnight Fame. Chapter 498 Overnight Fame. Although the competition only lasted a moment, none of the spectators had been disappointed by the show. On the contrary, the stands exploded with excitement. He defeated Master Lei Bao at such a young age. His future will definitely be limitless. We really didn't waste the trip. Get Master Shifeng's address. Rearrange my schedule as well. We must pay Master Shifeng a visit. The audience was not comprised of your average citizens. Every one of them was a reputable member of society. Now that Shifeng had defeated a top-tier master like Lei Bao, his future was limitless. A small stage like Jinhai City would not hold Shifeng. He could only shine brightest on the world stage. If they did not try to befriend Shifeng now, they would never qualify to do so in the future. However, compared to these guests, the chairman of Big Dipper, Xiao Yu, was so happy that he had nearly failed to contain his grin. He had originally thought that Lei Bao's willingness to become the training center's head instructor had been Big Dipper's greatest fortune. Xiao Yu had never expected Shifeng to be so powerful, even capable of defeating a top-tier master like Lei Bao. This was a top-tier master. Even throughout the whole country, such mighty individuals were as rare as phoenix feathers. If Big Dipper Training Center employed such a martial arts master, its popularity in business would undoubtedly skyrocket. Uncle Xiao, how do you plan to thank me? After all, it was I who introduced Shifeng to Big Dipper. Zhao Ruoshi grinned, her eyes flashing with pride and excitement. She felt as if Shifeng's victory were her own, and she basked in the success. Of course, we can't forget about you. In a moment I'll have a diamond member card prepared for you. Big Dipper has only ever given out 5 of these member cards, so you'll be the 6th. Xiao Yu laughed. Zhao Jianhua could not help his shock when he heard Xiao Yu's words. Big Dipper's diamond member card was extraordinary. As a diamond member, one would receive a 50% discount, and all monthly expenses under a certain amount would be waived. Throughout Jinhai City, only 5 people had received such privileges, and neither Zhao Jianhua nor Zhao Ruoshi's father were of those 5. Yet, his niece had actually become the 6th person to become one of Big Dipper's diamond members. Indescribable feelings colored Zhao Jianhua's stern expression. Before they, the older generation, could even reach this far, the younger generation surpassed them. Of course, this was all accredited to Shifeng's achievement. Now that Shifeng had defeated Master Lei Bao, becoming famous overnight, even the giants in flourishing, first-rate cities would scramble to recruit Shifeng, much less those in Jinhai City. At this moment, Xiao Yu was deeply afraid he could not hold back a true dragon like Shifeng. Now that he had a chance to solidify Big Dipper's relationship with Shifeng, he would maximize their generosity. After the competition ended, although Lei Bao had suffered relatively severe injuries, with the aid of modern technology and S-rank nutrient fluids, he would quickly recover to his peak condition. Master Shifeng, I am convinced of my loss in this competition. Please don't hold back and state your conditions. Since I have made the promise, I will not go back on my word, Lei Bao said weakly as he joined Shifeng in the lounge. At this moment, Lei Bao was still slightly pale. Lei Bao did not think that it was a coincidence that Shifeng just so happened to have broken past his limits, obtaining power and physical reactions beyond his body's capabilities, in the moment between life and death. At the very least, Shifeng should have already touched the boundaries of that realm. Shifeng was just a young man in his early 20s, yet he had already reached such mastery. Shifeng was easily stronger than Lei Bao himself. Lei Bao could not wrap his mind around it. Even if Shifeng began training while still inside his mother's womb and had received all sorts of resources, he should not be able to obtain the power to surpass his physical limitations at such a young age. If Lei Bao was a martial arts prodigy, then the man before him was a demon. Even if he were not convinced of his defeat, he had to accept it. Since Master Lei Bao has agreed, then I want you to join my workshop. Shifeng laughed. Lei Bao was a top-tier master who had trained both his inner and outer body to their limits. Shifeng had only been able to defeat Lei Bao due to luck. Fortunately, Shifeng's brain activity had improved before participating in this competition. He had even grasped the beginnings of the technique to unlock his brain's physical limiter. Although he had only overcome the limiter for an instant, it had been enough for him to reach a new level of strength, allowing him to defeat his opponent. In addition, Lei Bao had also been caught unprepared. Otherwise, there was more than a 90% chance that Shifeng would have suffered defeat in this competition. To Shifeng's current self, it was still somewhat early for him to overcome his brain's limiter. The brain limited a person's strength to protect the body. Before the physical body reached sufficient durability, actively trying to remove this limiter would only do more harm than good. Not to mention, Shifeng had yet to grasp this power fully. It might seem that Shifeng had only received a small scratch during the competition, but in reality, his body had been significantly damaged due to the explosive force he had displayed. Even without moving, Shifeng felt like needles pricked his entire body. Hence, the moment Shifeng returned to the lounge, he had madly consumed A-rank nutrient fluids to alleviate his pain. After this competition, he would not be able to train for quite some time. Join your workshop? Lei Bao frowned. Every martial artist wished to remain free and unfettered. He barely had enough time to train and improve himself. How would he find the time to work? Master Lei Bao, please relax. My workshop is a virtual gaming workshop that focuses on the most popular game currently, God's Domain. You only need to work at night while you rest. The workshop will not interfere with your life during the day. You can do whatever you want during that time, Shifeng slowly explained. He knew very well what Lei Bao worried about. Although Lei Bao had never come into contact with virtual reality games, especially God's Domain, Lei Bao was still a top-tier martial arts master. Currently, although Aqua Rose and the others had the potential, their foundations were lacking. They still needed to improve before they could become top-tier experts. However, Lei Bao was different. His combat foundation was extremely sturdy. If he familiarized himself with his body in God's Domain, and integrated the techniques he had learned in real life, he could very quickly become one of Zero Wing's top combatants. Okay, I'm relieved to hear that. Lei Bao nodded. He then left the lounge. Lei Bao's addition to Zero Wing would undoubtedly give the guild another fierce general. While Shifeng rested, 3 others entered the lounge. Lifting his head, Shifeng noticed that one of the new arrivals was none other than Big Dipper's chairman, Xiaoyu, with Liang Jing and Zhao Ruoxi following closely behind. At this moment, Zhao Ruoxi wore a blue one-piece that looked both light and elegant. Her inky hair scattered around her waist like a waterfall, adding a few hints of elegance to her originally innocent temperament. Upon entering the room, Zhao Ruoxi beamed at Shifeng, both worry and joy filling her eyes. Now that Shifeng had become famous overnight, the originally silent and unknown boy from school was no more. Now, he had become Jinhai City's focal point. Even old man Su wished to have a proper chat with Shifeng. Chapter 499 Rising of Candlelight. Chapter 499 Rising of Candlelight. In the lounge, both Liang Jing and Xiaoyu approached Shifeng with far more caution and respect than in the previous meetings. Only Zhao Ruoxi behaved as usual, smiling and laughing as she conversed with Shifeng. There did not seem to be any signs of a barrier between them. Master Shifeng, based on our previous arrangements, from today onwards you will be Big Dipper's head instructor. At the same time, you will also become one of Big Dipper's directors, and as you requested, Big Dipper will also come up with an area that will be under your sole management. Saying so, Xiaoyu took out a half-transparent card from his suit's pocket, handing it to Shifeng. This is Big Dipper's Diamond Member Card. The card's information has already been updated. In the future, all of your expenses at Big Dipper will be free of charge. Moreover, Big Dipper will also specially reserve a special training room for your use at any given time. When Zhao Ruoxi heard Xiaoyu's words, even she could not help her shock. The usual training rooms only contained some fitness and testing equipment. However, Big Dipper's special training rooms were different. Big Dipper spared no expense when they had constructed these training rooms. Every item inside was state-of-the-art. The entire room was also controlled by a quantum computer. These rooms were usually only provided to professional fighters. Normally, these rooms contained a dedicated combat robot. Special training rooms also came with full virtual combat videos and combat systems that stored beneficial data, which users could reference and learn from. There was even a gravity-controlled device that allowed one to adjust the gravity in the room in order to produce better results. Furthermore, each room had a health cabin that could help its users alleviate physical fatigue, accelerate physical recovery, and maintain the best quality of sleep each day. Hence, many of Jinhai City's professional fighters loved come to Big Dipper. The training rooms in Big Dipper were categorized into 4 different ranks: basic, intermediate, advanced, and special. While the cost of each room increased with rank, the benefits also increased. It was especially true for the gravity settings. In the basic training room, one could adjust the room's gravity by 2G. The intermediate training room's gravity could be adjusted by 3G. In advanced training rooms, one could change the gravity by 4G. In special training rooms, one could increase or decrease the gravity by 6G. It was impossible for ordinary people to train in such an environment. Even moving one's fingers would be difficult. As for the rental fees, ordinary people could not even afford a basic training room. It cost 3,000 credits to rent a basic training room for a day. That was almost a typical person's monthly salary. Of course, your average citizen didn't even qualify to become a member of Big Dipper, to begin with. To professional fighters, however, this was easily affordable. The intermediate training rooms cost 5,000 credits per day. A majority of the city's professional fighters usually preferred to rent intermediate training rooms. Unfortunately, there was not many available. Big Dipper only had 20 advanced training rooms, and they cost 10,000 credits to rent per day. This was practically the average price of renting a room at a 7-star hotel. As for special training rooms, there were only 5 in the Big Dipper Training Center, or better yet, in all of Jean High City. The rental for these rooms was 30,000 credits per day. However, one would be lucky if they even had the chance to rent one of these rooms. Yet, now, Big Dipper had specifically reserved one of these rooms for Shifeng. Countless people would definitely turn green with envy if they found out. I'll have to trouble Chairman Xiao then. Shifeng did not hold back as he accepted the diamond member card. With the special training room's gravity enhancement, his future training would yield far better results. Master Shifeng, there is also the matter of the 15 bottles of S-rank nutrient fluids and 5 virtual gaming cabins that we previously agreed to. Our board of directors has unanimously agreed to increase the count to 30 bottles and 10 virtual gaming cabins. We will have the items delivered to you in a few days, Xiaoyu said with a smile. Also, I will have my head assistant, Liang Jing, follow you. She is always very efficient. If you have any matters in Big Dipper you need to deal with, please let her take care of them for you. All right. Shifeng did not refuse Xiaoyu's offer. He had no reason to refuse to begin with. Aside from how important S-rank nutrient fluids were to him, just the 10 virtual gaming cabins could raise Zero Wing's workshop to a whole new level. It would no longer be just your average workshop. As for the assistant named Liang Jing, Shifeng did not know much about Big Dipper. If he wanted Big Dipper to take care of some matters for him, such as training the members of his workshop, an assistant like Liang Jing would definitely come in handy. She could save him a lot of trouble. Regardless of the other's optimistic view of his development in the fighting world, Shifeng had no intention of changing career paths. He only had one goal in his heart: God's domain. After all, God's domain held the world's future. After Shifeng chatted with Xiaoyu and the others for a while, he returned to his apartment. Before he left, Xiaoyu had Liang Jing prepare 5 bottles of S-rank nutrient fluids for him, which would help him quickly recover from the injuries he had suffered during the match with Lei Bao. After returning home, Shifeng immediately drank a bottle before resting in the virtual gaming cabin and logging into God's domain. A virtual gaming cabin also functioned as a health cabin. Only it had an additional function of allowing its user to log into God's domain. Hence, when recovering from an injury, it would be best to lie inside a virtual gaming cabin. The time was currently 7 p.m. Although it was still dark in God's domain, the sound of 3 system notifications rang in Shifeng's ears the moment he logged in. These 3 notifications informed him of the 2 Candlelight trading firms' completion in White River City and 1 in Starmoon City. The construction of all 3 firms had finished during the day outside of God's domain. Moreover, all 3 shops had attracted quite a bit of attention, the 2 Candlelight trading firms in White River City in particular. Both shops were exquisite 3-story tall buildings. Moreover, as both buildings had suddenly appeared beside White River City's auction house and bank, they had no difficulty attracting notice. In the end, many players had entered the buildings out of curiosity. Before they had investigated these new buildings, they had been ignorant. The moment they did, however, they were immediately startled. Not only were the shops equipped with a full range of items that players required, but the furnishing inside was also luxurious and magnificent. Both Candlelight trading firms were far more glamorous than the Star Streak trading firm. There were even lounges available in the two shops that allowed visiting players to enjoy beverages while they shopped. Most importantly was the appearance of an item that everyone in White River City thirsted for. That item was the basic strengthened armor kit. Although the basic strengthened armor kits were inferior to the basic mana armor kits, the latter was simply too scarce. Despite many people having heard of the item before, they had never personally seen it. Now that the basic strengthened armor kits had appeared in the two Candlelight trading firms, the first batch of players to enter the shops fought desperately to purchase them, afraid that the armor kits would sell out in a heartbeat. Sherfone had given Melancholic Smile the authority to determine the goods' prices in the shops, so it was up to her to decide at what price she wanted to sell the basic strengthened armor kits for. Yet, despite having set the initial price of the armor kits at 11 silver coins, it had taken only an instant for more than 100 to sell. As a result, Melancholic Smile had no choice but to raise the price once more. In the end, the price of the basic strengthened armor kit rose gradually from the initial 11 silver to its current price of 16 silver per kit. This price had far surpassed Sherfeng's initial expectation. Even so, in a short dozen or so hours, the three shops in White River City and Star Moon City sold more than 6,000 kits. Moreover, due to the basic strengthened armor kits, every player in White River City now knew about the newly established Candlelight trading firms. As a result, more players began to visit the trading firms, allowing business at the two shops to flourish. By the time Sherfone logged into the game, the two Candlelight trading firms in White River City were already packed full of people. Everyone rushed to purchase the basic strengthened armor kits. In addition to the several dozen sets of dragon scale set equipment that had sold at the Blackwing auction house, Sherfone had suddenly become a wealthy man again, with more than 10,000 gold in his pockets. Chapter 500 Exclusive Control. Chapter 500 Exclusive Control. White River City, Overwhelming Smiles Guild Residence. Vice Leader Yulan, I've finished my investigation of the Candlelight trading firm. A level 23 male assassin reported upon entering Overwhelming Smiles' meeting room. Who started it? Yulan asked in a hurry. Currently, Overwhelming Smiles suffered in the field battles against Zero Wing. Their daily coin expenditures were also quite significant. Although Underworld had increased their investment in Overwhelming Smile, funds in particular, it was truly not easy to convert credits into coins. Despite spending a massive amount to purchase coins, the guild's supply barely maintained balance with its consumption. In the beginning, Yulan had not expected that repairing equipment would cost so much. However, her thoughts changed as the guild's death toll continued to increase. Dying once might not cost much, but after 2 or 3 deaths, the guild members had spent practically all of their remaining coins. Afterward, in order to repair their equipment, these guild members had no choice but to choose coins as compensation. This situation had immediately given Yulan, who had initially been quite confident, a huge headache. She wished she could choke Black Flame to death. They had already paid out more than 1,000 gold as compensation, not to mention the amount of credits they had compensated. Moreover, it wouldn't be long before the guild had to pay compensation solely in coins. After all, if players did not repair their equipment, they could not go out and level up. If their equipment became scrap, they would have to purchase new equipment to serve as a replacement. However, good equipment was not easy to obtain. Every piece of a player's equipment had been earned through blood and sweat. Losing even a single piece was a painful loss. If they lost every piece of equipment they had on them. Hence, before the durability of their equipment reached a critical point, even if players had to purchase coins with credits, spending their entire fortune, they had to repair their equipment. However, there was one point that confused Yulan greatly. Though Overwhelming Smile's losses were very heavy, Zero Wing's losses should not be any less. Not to mention, Zero Wing was not using credits as a form of compensation at all. Its consumption of gold should be significantly higher than theirs. Yet, even until now, not only had Zero Wing showed no signs of lacking money, but it was also spending more money than before. It was inconceivable. From the information Yuan had overheard, she knew that, aside from constructing the best smithy available, Zero Wing had also purchased several sets of dragon scale set equipment. At the very least, they would have to spend more than 2,000 gold on these purchases. Not to mention, there was also the gold they had to give out as compensation for the war of attrition. Even Underworld would find it difficult to spend so much in such a short time. Yuan could only see one end, overwhelming smile withdrawing from White River City, if things continued like this in their war of attrition. Hence, they needed to make a major change now. They must find a way to earn a large sum of gold. If one wanted to earn a large sum of coins in God's domain, the only way to do so was through trade. Although the guild quests published in the guild residence were a large source of income, that potential was nothing compared to the money one could earn through trade. Although the various large guilds of God's domain possessed a lot of gold, compared to the countless players in God's domain, this sum was insignificant. Even if Overwhelming Smile only earned 1 silver from each of the millions of players in White River City, the total would be several tens of thousands of gold. At that time, they could easily afford a war with several other large guilds simultaneously, much less afford to deal with a single Zero Wing. In White River City, the most powerful trading firm was currently the Starstreak trading firm. Not only did the firm occupy a strategic location, but it also possessed land in the 7 cities surrounding White River City, allowing it to sell items to players in 8 cities and earn tons of gold daily. The amount the firm earned each day was enough to make one drool. Unfortunately, the Starstreak trading firm was an NPC's property, not a player's. Despite exhausting all of their means, the various large guilds in White River City were unable to form a cooperative relationship with the Starstreak trading firm. In the end, they could only give up on their endeavors and try to open up their own shops. However, White River City's ordinary lands were not particularly valuable. Currently, the various guilds had all set their sights on the golden lands of the city and were consistently accumulating money and raising their reputation to achieve that goal. Now, however, the Candlelight trading firm had appeared and purchased 2 golden lands ahead of the other guilds. Although the Candlelight trading firm was not a match for the Starstreak trading firm, with the basic strengthened armor kits and the full range of products, it, too, stood among White River City's top trading firms. Over time, if the Candlelight trading firm introduced several other items that players direly needed, it would definitely surpass the Starstreak trading firm and become the #1 trading firm in White River City. Moreover, unlike the Starstreak trading firm, a player had established and owned the Candlelight trading firm. That signified the possibility of cooperation. Thus, Yulan had sent her subordinate to investigate the firm. I heard that the manager there is a young woman named Melancholic Smile. Moreover, she is a forger, and was once a forger employed by the Starstreak trading firm, the male assassin said slowly. In addition, aside from that woman, 2 other Starstreak forgers seem to have defected to Candlelight as well. The 3 of them produced the basic strengthening armor kits. Good, you've done well. Yulan smiled. Melancholic Smile. This is my first time hearing this name. There really are a lot of capable people in White River City. It seems that I'll need to make a personal visit to the Candlelight trading firm to have a chat. Overwhelming Smile wasn't the only guild with such thoughts. Several other large guilds also began to eye the Candlelight trading firm. Such a thriving trading firm was no different from a large gold mine that could provide their guilds with various resources. If they could obtain the trading firm, they could instantly raise their guild's strength by leaps and bounds. Meanwhile, Sherfone once again had over 10,000 gold in his pockets, and he began to reconsider the plots of land in Starmoon City again. Currently, as the underground arena was not particularly popular, the Candlelight trading firm's business there was only passable. Attracting the attention of Starmoon City's players would be far easier if he set up a shop in the city's central district. Unfortunately, as Lifeless Blade was only an ordinary noble in Starmoon City, he could only purchase ordinary land. He did not qualify to purchase the lands in the Central District and golden areas of Star Moon City. I need to think of a better way to raise my reputation. Shifeng tried to recall information relating to Star Moon City's resources. After he pondered for some time, Shifeng's eyes suddenly shone. Immediately, he hailed a horse carriage and hurried to the palace. Star Moon City was Star Moon Kingdom's core, so it was not easy to raise one's reputation here. If players relied on reputation quests, it would take them ages before they could become a baron of Star Moon City. For this reason, many players had given up on the notion of doing business in Star Moon City and had shifted their aim towards other cities instead. However, there were many players in Star Moon City. There was bound to be a few amazing characters amongst the millions of players. In the past, there were several independent players who had taken the lead and managed to become barons, even viscounts, before the various large guilds. In the end, these independent players had claimed a few good lands for themselves, taking the opportunity to make a fortune. The monthly rental they received was enough to allow them to live in luxury for the rest of their days. Despite being independent players, these few individuals were not ordinary characters. They were not penniless individuals. Instead, they were relatively wealthy individuals. They had been relatively famous in several other virtual reality games and had earned large sums of money during their time playing those games. Meanwhile, through a special method, these people had managed to grind large amounts of reputation points in a relatively short amount of time, quickly becoming barons. After this incident was revealed, these players had become the envy of every player in Star Moon City. That method was very simple. Players needed to purchase some supplies with coins, then contribute these supplies to a certain Grand Duke to receive reputation points for Star Moon City. Unfortunately, the conversion ratio of coins to reputation points would make any ordinary player curse the system. However, Shifeng did not lack money right now, he only lacked time. Even if it were a more expensive method, he would still employ it. Chapter 501 Grand Duke Hartfield. Chapter 501 Grand Duke Hartfield. The lights shone brightly outside of Star Moon City's palace. At this moment, the street adjacent to the palace looked as if it held a large-scale celebration. A crowd of players exploded with excitement. Players filled both sides of the street, shouting and selling their wares. Star Moon City was different from the other ordinary cities in Star Moon Kingdom. The traffic here was constant, with players coming and going from other kingdoms and empires. Hence, unlike in other cities where players could only set up their stalls once every 3 or 4 days in specified areas, players could set up their stalls in Star Moon City every day. Only, a fee was required to set up a stall. It was not free. Even with the fee, a large number of players were still willing to set up their stalls to sell items rather than using the auction house and paying a heavier fee. Even if they sold their items at a lower price here, they could still make a higher profit. Normally, players would only choose to sell their items through the auction house if they were in a hurry for money, or they wished to obtain a better price for rare and precious items. As the items sold at stalls were much cheaper, many independent players and large guilds would come here to purchase the materials and items they needed. Shifeng had come to this place precisely to purchase some supplies. The method of exchanging coins for reputation points was, in reality, a special quest found in Star Moon City. To players who focused on raiding dungeons and grinding monsters to level up, they might never discover this special quest. However, to players who leveled up slowly and focused more on enjoying the game itself, it was not particularly difficult to find the quest. As long as they listened for information in the capital city, they could obtain some clues leading to the quest. Meanwhile, this clue was that Grand Duke Hartfield's daughter had fallen ill and was in urgent need of a large amount of herbs. The quest only required 1 stack of ordinary herbs. Upon completing this quest, players would receive a certain amount of money and EXP. Meanwhile, players could accept this quest indefinitely. Unfortunately, the amount of money and EXP wasn't quite worth the value of the herbs. In the past, wealthy players who wished to level up quickly had spent money to increase their EXP through such quests. Even so, they did not invest a lot of money in this method of leveling. After all, coins were very valuable during the initial stages of the game. Nobody would spend them foolishly. In the past, as everyone had been convinced that this special quest was merely a method that allowed one to exchange money for EXP, a few insane individuals, who had not wanted to level up in the fields, began to purchase herbs in bulk, turning them in to complete the special quest. In such a way, these individuals each traded in 1,500 stacks of herbs, reaching a critical point of this quest. When a player traded in 1,500 stacks of herbs, Grand Duke Hartfield would no longer reward said player with money and EXP. Instead, the Grand Duke rewarded the player with a thank you gift. One could obtain a variety of items from this gift. Among them, there was a 10% chance to obtain a reputation book. When used, the reputation book would give the user a certain amount of Star Moon City reputation points. This was why Sherfong had come to this bazaar to purchase herbs in bulk, either ordinary herbs or rare herbs. After making a round through the bazaar and investigating the general prices of herbs, Sherfong began shouting through the trade channel. Buying ordinary herbs, 40 copper per stack. Rare herbs, 3 silver per stack. We'll buy as many as you have. The trade channel was a unique channel only available in bazaars. Any players in the bazaar could receive the messages sent through this channel. However, players who wished to shout their messages needed to pay a fee of 1 silver per message. Though the length of each message was limited to 100 words, it was a valuable promotion tool. With this, Sherfong could save himself a lot of trouble. The amount and prices of herbs at each stall varied greatly. If Sherfong had to visit every stall in the bazaar, even if he exhausted himself to death, he would only acquire a small amount. Hence, rather than haggling with every stall owner, he might as well offer to purchase herbs at an average price. Naturally, interested players would hunt him down to sell their goods. Shortly after Sherfeng's announcement, a large number of players rushed towards him. Boss, how many herbs do you want to buy? Big brother swordsman, look! I have excellent quality herbs. I can even lower the price if you buy them in bulk. The players that had hurried over all looked at Sherfong like hungry wolves. They crowded around him, rushing to sell their herbs. Their intensity far exceeded Sherfeng's initial expectations. All right, no need to rush. All of you, line up and trade with me. Sherfong smiled as he motioned for the crowd to calm down. Sure enough, players' enthusiasm in the capital city is a lot more intense. However, after giving it some thought, their enthusiasm was only natural. Players were currently busy with leveling and were not particularly enthusiastic about lifestyle classes. Although guilds nurtured their own alchemists, the guilds could easily supply the amount of herbs their alchemists needed. They didn't need to purchase any. More importantly, the crowd was so excited because the demand for herbs was usually quite low. As useful potion recipes were extremely rare, demand for herbs had dropped even further. In addition, Star Moon Kingdom was not a herb per kingdom, resulting in the prices of herbs remaining relatively low. Despite there being 20 herbs in each stack, ordinary herbs only sold for 40 copper per stack. Even rare herbs only sold for 3 silver per stack. One could imagine just how worthless herbs were. Yet, even with such low prices, few people were willing to purchase herbs, which explained why everyone was so excited to see Sherfong. Players would frequently encounter herbs while adventuring, and they would usually collect these herbs to sell in bulk at a later time. Now, these players' actions benefited Sherfong. In a short moment, Sherfong had purchased 2,000 stacks of ordinary herbs and 200 stacks of rare herbs, spending 14 gold in total. To other players, this might be an astronomical sum, but to Sherfong, this was only a drop in the bucket. Sorry, but my bag's full. Everyone, please wait here for a while. I'll come back to purchase more in just a moment. Sherfong hurriedly turned and ran towards the Grand Duke's mansion. Reluctance filled the crowd's eyes as they watched Sherfeng's departing figure. However, when they heard that he would return to purchase more later, they all chose to remain there, quietly awaiting his return. At this time of year, there were simply too few players willing to purchase herbs. Now that one such player had emerged, how could they easily give up on this opportunity? They would wait a few hours if they had to, not to mention a few minutes. The Grand Duke's mansion was only a short distance from the palace, The journey there only took Sherfong a dozen minutes or so. After entering the Grand Duke's mansion, after the level 150 Great Steward's introduction, Sherfong arrived before the level 200 Grand Duke Hartfield. After a brief conversation, Grand Duke Hartfield began telling Sherfong the problem burdening his daughter. After which, Sherfong received the special quest to acquire herbs. He then retrieved the herbs from his bag, one stack after another. For every stack of herbs Sherfong turned in, he received 20 copper and 2,000 EXP in return. Though Sherfong took a loss of 20 copper with each exchange, he did not pay it any mind. Compared to forging, his leveling speed from handing in the herbs was several times faster. As soon as he gave the Grand Duke the herbs, he immediately received EXP. The process was very fast and convenient. In mere moments, Sherfong had turned in 1,500 stacks of ordinary herbs, earning a total of 3 gold coins and 3 million EXP. In less than half an hour, Sherfeng's experience bar rose significantly. Earning 3 million EXP in half an hour was an incredibly efficient way to level up. Unfortunately, after turning in the 1,500 stack of herbs, he only received a thank you gift for every subsequent stack of herbs he turned in. As there were still a large number of players waiting for him to purchase their goods, Sherfong wasted no time as he turned in all of the herbs in his possession. Unlike ordinary herbs, he would receive 10 thank you gifts for each stack of rare herbs. In terms of money, it was much more worthwhile to trade rare herbs for the gifts instead. Unfortunately, rare herbs were too scarce. Chapter 502 Twilight Treasure Chest. Chapter 502 Twilight Treasure Chest. Sherfong traded all of his ordinary herbs and rare herbs for thank you gifts in one fell swoop. Suddenly, Sherfong noticed that Grand Duke Hartfield's gaze had changed slightly. The Grand Duke's originally stern expression seemed to have softened significantly. Was I just imagining things? After Sherfeng's brain activity had improved, his 5 senses and intuition had become extraordinarily sharp. Advanced NPCs of God's domain possess very high intelligence. It was even higher than ordinary players. It was especially true for a level 200, Tier 3 NPC like Grand Duke Hartfield. Although Hartfield might not be as strong as Magistrate Weissman, not even Weissman dared to offend the Grand Duke. Hartfield was the only Grand Duke throughout Starmoon Kingdom, while the others were just dukes. In Starmoon Kingdom, his position was only below that of the king and equal to that of the kingdom's Grand Marshal, Adolf Serret. Working with the Grand Marshal, they protected the kingdom from both inside and outside threats. If Sherfong could form a relationship with Grand Duke Hartfield, it would greatly benefit his future development in Starmoon Kingdom. Forget it. It's best to just focus on raising my reputation. Sherfong shook his head to clear his mind. He then departed from the Grand Duke's mansion and returned to purchasing herbs. The thank you gifts did not take up a lot of space, with each stack holding up to 1,000 gifts. Sherfong had received a total of 2,500 gifts, which took up only 3 bag slots. Upon arriving at the bazaar in front of the palace, sure enough, the herb-selling players had not moved. The moment these players noticed Sherfeng's return, they immediately rushed over to welcome him. In moments, Sherfeng's bag was filled to the brim once more. He then returned to the Grand Duke's mansion and began to trade the herbs for more thank you gifts. After spending several hours ferrying herbs from the bazaar to the Grand Duke's mansion, Sherfong had purchased close to half of all the available herbs in Starmoon Kingdom, his total expenditure exceeding 400 gold. Originally, Sherfong had hoped to continue purchasing herbs. However, his high-profile actions had attracted a lot of attention, and many people had begun secretly investigating the reason behind Sherfeng's purchases. After all, no guild lacked herbs. Even if a guild were trying to nurture a large number of alchemists, there should be no need for such a massive supply. It should be about time to call it quits. Sherfong glanced at the several assassins spying on him from a distance. He would not give any of these people the slightest of opportunities to discover his intentions. Every time he visited the Grand Duke's mansion, he would look for a secluded location before disguising himself. Even if his trackers were quite capable, without a particularly high-ranking identification skill such as omniscient eyes, it would be impossible for them to see through his disguise. In reality, Shifeng did not have to pay these people any heed. Even if they discovered this special quest, no guild would willingly spend so much money to earn some EXP. To be safe, however, Shifeng still disguised himself to avoid these players discovering the method of using money to earn reputation points just yet. After he finished purchasing his last batch of herbs, Shifeng departed from the bazaar and randomly picked a restaurant to enter. After using the demon mask to disguise his appearance, he boldly strode out of the restaurant and headed towards Grand Duke Hartfield's mansion. Inside the Grand Duke's abode, Shifeng habitually walked up to the Grand Duke and took out the final 1,000 stacks of ordinary herbs and 1,000 stacks of rare herbs from his bag, trading them all for thank you gifts. Suddenly, the familiar sound of a system notification reached his ears. System: Grand Duke Hartfield's favorability increased by 30 points. Sure enough, this special quest is not as simple as it seems. Shifeng grew slightly excited upon seeing this system notification. The higher ranked an NPC was, the more difficult it was to raise their favorability. The fact that he had increased the Grand Duke's favorability just by spending around 400 gold was completely worth it. However, giving the situation some thought, Shifeng felt that this result was quite reasonable. After all, he had already earned close to 120,000 thank you gifts. If each stack could hold 1,000 gifts, that was close to 120 stacks. Currently, the prices of herbs were only this cheap due to the fact that players of God's domain were still low-leveled and did not have much use for them. If Shifeng waited 2 more weeks or so, the money he would have to spend to earn 120,000 thank you gifts would most likely increase by several folds. If the Grand Duke had nothing to say even after such a huge contribution, his heart was definitely made of stone. Young adventurer, thank you for your enthusiastic contributions. With this many herbs, I can extract a sufficient amount of herbal essence to cure my daughter. To show my gratitude, you may use those thank you gifts to trade for the treasures I usually store inside my treasury. Grand Duke Hartfield said happily. Your Highness Hartfield, it will be my honor. Shifeng replied, immense joy filling his heart. Originally, Shifeng had intended to open the thank you gifts he had amassed in one sitting. He had never expected the gifts to have such a purpose. Most likely, not even those several wealthy players in the past had exchanged as many herbs as he had. Steward, take this adventurer to have a look, Grand Duke Hartfield said. Yes, the Grand Steward answered before leading Shifeng to the treasury on the 3rd floor. The Grand Duke's treasury was heavily guarded. The 6 white-robed knights guarding the entrance were level 200 Tier 3 Judgment Knights. Not to mention, there was even a Tier 5 magic array protecting the vault. Even a Tier 4 class would require a significant amount of time to break through such a powerful magic array. Upon entering the treasury, Shifeng discovered that the place looked very much like a museum, with many treasures on display. This is the list of treasures. You are allowed to redeem the gifts for any of the items inside. The Grand Steward passed the list to Shifeng. There were not many items available for exchange on the list. However, Shifeng was not surprised. Grand Duke Hartfield's favorability towards him was only 30 points. The fact that the Grand Duke was willing to let him trade his thank you gifts for treasures was already a considerable outcome. If he wished to trade for every item in this treasury, he would need to raise the Grand Duke's favorability towards him to at least 300 points. Shifeng then examined the list of items. Sure enough, every item was very basic. The majority consisted of weapons and equipment that were close to his current level, whereas the quality of the items ranged between secret silver and fine gold rank. Moreover, their prices were not cheap. Even the most basic piece of level 25 secret silver equipment required 1,000 thank you gifts. If converted to coins, it would cost 4 gold. If not for the herbs he bought being cheap, 1,000 gifts would cost 8 gold or more. Moreover, these level 25 secret silver and fine gold equipment were all individual pieces and not set equipment. To Shifeng, these items did not serve much purpose. Just as Shifeng felt that he had nothing to gain here, he suddenly discovered the name of a very familiar item at the bottom of the list. Isn't this the Twilight treasure chest? The Twilight treasure chest had been very famous in God's domain. It was also referred to as both the treasure chest of luck and the indiscriminate treasure chest. Only elite monsters that were level 30 and above had a very low chance to drop the Twilight treasure chest. As for why it was called the indiscriminate treasure chest, the items one could obtain from it were extremely random. One might only receive 2 or 3 copper and some trash items. One might also receive epic or even fragmented legendary items. In general, the items one could get from the Twilight treasure chest relied heavily on luck. In the past, the majority of the players who had obtained this item would promptly toss it onto the auction house, selling it for around 1 gold rather than opening it themselves. On the other hand, each Twilight treasure chest only required 100 thank you gifts to redeem. In other words, each Twilight treasure chest would cost Sherfong 40 silver, which was significantly cheaper than its price in his past life. Luck? When Sherfong looked at the Twilight treasure chest, he suddenly recalled the Icarus's heart around his neck. This was a godly tool that could instantly raise his luck by 25 points. Chapter 503 Yin-Yang Walker. Chapter 503 Yin-Yang Walker. Sherfong looked at the Twilight treasure chest and pondered his situation carefully. Currently, he had nearly 120,000 thank you gifts on him. They were definitely enough to raise his reputation to a sufficient level. The luck attribute could be applied in various aspects. Aside from monster drops, luck also played a significant role in opening treasure chests and gift boxes, though the effects were not as prominent as they were with drops. However, Icarus's heart only gave Sherfong 5 points of luck under normal circumstances. That amount was too little to make a significant difference when opening treasure chests. Based on Sherfong's understanding of the luck statistic, 5 points would not even double his drop rate when opening a treasure chest. Meanwhile, the Twilight treasure chest was famed for being a miser of good items. Only by activating Divine Providence and boosting his luck to 25 points would his chances significantly improve when opening a treasure chest. However, Divine Providence only had a duration of 30 seconds, whereas its cooldown lasted 1 hour. Let's decide after I raise my reputation. Saying so, Sherfong began opening the thank you gifts. Each thank you gift only required 1 second to open. Sherfong opened 10 gifts in a row. Aside from obtaining some copper coins, he also obtained 2 reputation books, the gifts yielding far more than he had expected. Each reputation book could raise the user's Star Moon City reputation by 1 point. Unfortunately, the book could not be traded. Otherwise, Sherfong really would sell them to the public. However, these reputation books' effects weakened as a player's reputation grew. Below 100 points, the book would raise a player's reputation by 1 point with a 100% success rate. After reaching 100 points, there was only a 60% chance. At 200 points, that success rate fell further to 30%, 20% at 300 points, and 10% at 400 points. When a player's reputation reached 500 points, there was only a 3% chance to increase their reputation by 1 point when using the reputation book. To become a Baron, players required 500 reputation points. To become a Viscount, players required 1,000 reputation points. If Sherfong hoped to become a Viscount by relying on the reputation books, he would have to expend a staggering number. As for becoming a Count, which was 1 rank above a Viscount, that was practically impossible. That was because a player needed 3,000 reputation points to become a Count. The effects of just having 5 points of luck is really quite good. I wonder if it will be possible to obtain the Mastery Book? Sherfong grinned. With 5 points of luck, his chance of obtaining reputation books from the thank you gifts was indeed higher than other players. However, other than copper coins and reputation books, there was also an extremely small chance for players to obtain mastery books. Mastery was something very important to any player in God's domain. Taking Sherfong for example, as his mastery was very high, his basic attacks dealt more damage compared to other players. If he could raise his one-handed sword mastery's rank to a basic sword master, he could increase his basic sword attack damage by 30%. That was 10% more than an advanced swordsman. With a 10% difference in basic attacks, the skill damage difference was even higher. Meanwhile, Sherfone was only dozens of points away from becoming a basic sword master. If he could obtain mastery books, he could advance his combat power further. By the time he went to the ancient battlefield to sharpen his techniques, he would also obtain better effects. Sherfone then began to open the thank you gifts frantically. 100, 300, 500, 1000. After spending several hours, Sherfone opened more than 10,000 thank you gifts and obtained a total of 2,000 reputation books. In addition, he had also luckily obtained 8 mastery books. Each mastery book could give him 1 mastery point with 100% certainty. Will divine providence have an effect on the increase in reputation? When Sherfone thought about how, after his reputation reached 100 points, the reputation books no longer gave him 1 reputation point with 100% certainty, then meant that luck was involved. Since luck was involved, then it was definitely related to the luck attribute. Sherfone grinned slightly as he activated divine providence. Suddenly, a faint golden glow covered Sherfeng's body as if he had received a blessing from heaven as he became the absolute focal point inside the entire treasury. Immediately, Sherfone began to activate the 2,000 reputation books. The activation process of a reputation book was very fast. The book would activate with a single click. Sherfone could gain many reputation books in just 30 seconds. In the next moment, Sherfeng's finger transformed into an afterimage. With Sherfeng's speed, he could click dozens of times every second. Following which, Sherfone heard the ringing of a continuous stream of system notifications. System, congratulations. You have gained 1 Star Moon City reputation point. System, congratulations. You have gained 1 Star Moon City reputation point. System, congratulations. You have gained 1 Star Moon City reputation point. 30 seconds later, of the 2,000 reputation books Sherfone obtained, only a little more than 700 remained. Meanwhile, Sherfeng's reputation in Star Moon City had also risen to 436 points. He was only 64 points away from becoming a baron. The divine providence's effects were remarkable. Sure enough, it is effective. Sherfone immediately grew excited. Using this method, he could save a large number of thank you gifts. At this rate, not to mention becoming a viscount, he could even give becoming a count. Hence, Sherfone frantically opened thank you gifts once more. It just so happened that divine providence was on cooldown during this period. An hour later, Sherfone began another round of clicking reputation books. 30 seconds later, Sherfeng's reputation rose from 416 points to 578 points. Following which, Sherfone continued opening the thank you gifts. After opening more than 30,000 gifts, Sherfeng's reputation had finally reached 1,000 points, becoming a Viscount of Star Moon City. In addition, he had also obtained a total of 21 mastery books. Originally, Sherfeng still intended to continue raising his reputation. However, seeing as there were less than 90,000 thank you gifts remaining, even if he used divine providence, it would not be enough for him to become a count. Hence, Sherfeng gave up on the notion. However, this result had already surpassed Sherfeng's initial expectations. Normally, 120,000 thank you gifts might not even be enough for him to become a Viscount. In this aspect, divine providence had truly played a significant role. However, now that Sherfeng had 21 mastery books, as long as he strived, he could raise his one-handed sword mastery to 150 points, reaching the standard of a basic sword master. Hence, Sherfeng continued the process of opening the thank you gifts and had even used divine providence to aid him in his endeavor. After opening another 10,000 or so thank you gifts, Sherfeng accumulated a total of 48 mastery books. Immediately, he upgraded his one-handed sword mastery to the standard of a basic sword master, his basic damage increasing by 30%. At this moment, Sherfeng had less than 80,000 thank you gifts remaining. At once, Sherfeng exchanged all of them for Twilight treasure chests. Each Twilight treasure chest cost 100 thank you gifts. In the end, Sherfong had gained close to 800 Twilight treasure chests. He would have to spend close to 800 gold if he bought so many anywhere else. After Divine Providence's cooldown completed. Twilight treasure chest, you better not disappoint me. Sherfong took out 9 Twilight treasure chests and set them on the ground. Taking a deep breath, he immediately activated Divine Providence and swiftly began activating the treasure chests before him. As time passed, the silver-colored treasure chests inlaid with purple crystals were swiftly opened. 1 chest. 2 chests. 3 chests. Finally, Sherfong managed to open the 9 Twilight treasure chests within 30 seconds. The 9 Twilight treasure chests released a colorful brilliance as their lids were removed, making the entire treasury shine beautifully. Sherfong then began collecting the items inside the treasure chests. As Sherfong collected the items inside the 6th Twilight treasure chest, he suddenly froze. With disbelief, he retrieved a beautiful chestplate that gave off both a black and white glow. Yin-Yang Walker! Chapter 504 Tier 1 Set Equipment. Chapter 504 Tier 1 Set Equipment. In God's domain, one could obtain a wide variety of items from the Twilight treasure chest. However, the chance of obtaining good equipment was incredibly small. As for set equipment, don't even think about it. Yet, the armor called Yin-Yang Walker before Sherfong was indeed a part of a set equipment. For a moment, Sherfong even questioned his own vision. If it were any other set equipment, at most, Sherfeng's good luck would have surprised him. However, the Yin-Yang Walker was different. It was a special set equipment just like the Warfire set equipment. However, if Sherfong had to decide which set was better, without a doubt, it would be the Yin-Yang Walker set equipment before him. Although the Warfire set equipment could be upgraded to fine gold rank, the Yin-Yang Walker was a Tier 1 set equipment. A Tier 1 set equipment was an exclusive set for Tier 1 classes. Although it had no grade, its boost to a Tier 1 player's combat power even surpassed Dark Gold set equipment. However, a Tier 1 set equipment also possessed heavy restrictions as only designated classes could use it. Moreover, the set would bind to a player when equipped, and it could neither be dropped nor traded. However, it could be destroyed if its durability reached 0. Moreover, the repair fees for a Tier 1 set equipment could rival those of epic-ranked weapons and equipment. Despite having so many restrictions, a majority of the experts in God's domain loved these sets. However, it was extremely difficult to obtain a Tier 1 set equipment, as only level 20 or higher Great Lords had a chance to drop them. Both Great Lords in the fields and in dungeons had the same drop rate. Tier 1 set equipment was also known as the best set equipment, other than epic set equipment, available for Tier 1 players. It truly lived up to its name. The minimum level of a Tier 1 set equipment was level 20, and its attributes would increase alongside the player's level to level 50, which was when players could class change from a Tier 1 class to a Tier 2 class. If a player had a Tier 1 set equipment when they carried out their Tier 2 class change quest, the quest would undoubtedly be easier to complete. Sherfong then appraised the Yin-Yang Walker's chestplate. Yin-Yang Walker set equipment. Level 20, level 50. Equipment requirement, Tier 1 Guardian Knight. Set consists of 5 parts: head, chest, hands, legs, and feet. Binds when equipped. Set effect. 2-piece effect: defense skill increased by 3 levels, defense increased by 10%, damage received reduced by 15%, and healing received increased by 15%. 4-piece effect: endurance increased by 15%, and strength increased by 10%. Obtain Yin-Yang Shield skill. Cast a magic shield on yourself, reducing all magic damage received by 60% and gaining immunity to all control effects for 15 seconds. Cooldown, 2 minutes. 5-piece effect: receive 1 stack of Yin-Yang energy every time damage is received. After 30 stacks, Yin-Yang power skill can be activated. Hatred increased by 100%, all attacks deal holy damage, all Guardian Knight skill effects increased by 50%, and all attributes increased by 15% for 24 seconds. Cooldown 5 minutes. If I can gather the complete set and give it to a Tier 1 Guardian Knight, tanking bosses in large-scale team dungeons will be a breeze. Shifeng inwardly sighed as he read the Yin-Yang Walker's set effects. Obtaining even a single piece from the Twilight treasure chest was already nearly impossible. Trying to obtain the complete set would be a miracle. The effect of having 25 luck is better than I expected. Shifeng was utterly satisfied. He then looked at the large number of Twilight treasure chests in his bag, chuckling. With so many Twilight treasure chests, I refuse to believe that Divine Providence won't net me any other good items. Shifeng had already decided. As soon as the cooldown of Divine Providence completed, he would use it to open the treasure chests. With more than 700 Twilight treasure chests, even if he could not earn back the cost of all the herbs he had bought, he would not suffer too huge of a loss either. Soon, Shifeng collected the remaining items from the treasure chests and stored them in his bag. Other than the Yin-Yang Walker, the 9 Twilight treasure chests only yielded ordinary items. Shifeng had only obtained a few silver coins and some rare materials, as well as a forging design to create the light stone. Although it was a forging design, it wasn't very valuable. It was not worth even 30 silver. This was because the light stone forging design was quite common. It had a chance to drop from any level 40 or above maps. However, God's Domain's current players were very much in need of light stones. The light stone was a consumable item that could illuminate a certain area as if it were daytime. In the darkness of night, any monsters caught within the light stone's radius would lose their nighttime advantages. The item allowed players to grind monsters freely and level up during the night. To players who wished to level up quickly, even the darkest night was a time to level up. Light stones were practically necessary for players out in the fields, hence why the drop rate for the item's forging design was relatively high. Only, players would find it very difficult to obtain the forging design at their current levels. Light stone? A light flashed in Shifeng's eyes. He felt that this was a good opportunity to make a fortune. As long as he sold them, the light stones would be well received. Currently, the Candlelight trading firm relied on the strengthened armor kits to draw customers from the Starstreak trading firm. If he added light stones to the firm's available products, it would definitely boost the firm's competitive edge. Light stones were easy to produce. Moreover, the materials it required consisted of cheap and common items such as advanced stones and magic essences. Hence, light stones were easily affordable by the majority of the players, unlike the expensive strengthened armor kits that only a small number of players could afford. In addition, there were only 3 people producing the strengthened armor kits right now, and their success rates were only at 30%. It was not enough to satisfy the demand of so many players. As for light stones, even an advanced forging apprentice's success rate would be higher than 30%. Only the light stone forging design was not something players below level 30 could obtain. If Shifeng could acquire a large number of light stone forging designs, the Candlelight trading firm could take Star Moon Kingdom's entire market by storm. The Candlelight trading firm had plenty of advanced forging apprentices. As long as they had a sufficient number of forging designs, they could mass-produce the light stones. Not only could they supply the players from White River City and Star Moon City, but they could also provide an endless supply to other cities as well. At that time, even counting their money would become a laborious task. In any case, I have nothing better to do right now. I might as well grind for some light stone forging designs. Shifeng grinned. Immediately he recalled several maps suitable for grinding light stone forging designs. Although those maps were all level 40 and above, Shifeng had the ignore level effects provided by the magic weapon Abyssal Blade, the Dragon Claw set equipment, and the Golden Stigmata. Combined, he could ignore up to 45 levels. In addition to Shifeng's own level, he could take on a level 70 monster should he choose to do so. Only, the attributes of a level 70 monster were a bit too powerful. Even if Shifeng could damage these monsters, they could kill him with a single slap. However, against monsters below level 50, he could definitely make an attempt as long as they were not chieftains or lords. Shifeng then headed to Star Moon City's City Hall to purchase a valuable golden land. While Shi Feng had focused on raising his reputation, the dragon scale set equipment he had placed in the Blackwing auction house had finally sold out. In addition to the money Shi Feng had earned through the Candlelight trading firms, he now had over 20,000 gold in his pockets. Thus, Shi Feng decided to buy one of the plots of land beside the Star Moon Bank for 16,000 gold. However, as Shi Feng was a viscount, he received a 10% discount on his purchase. Even after constructing a new branch of the Candlelight trading firm, he had not even spent a total of 16,000 gold. After he had finished his business in the city hall, Shi Feng took a horse carriage to the teleportation hall and teleported to the Twin Tower Highlands, a level 45 map with the highest drop rate for light stone forging designs. Chapter 505 Domineering Melancholic. Chapter 505 Domineering Melancholic. White River City, inside one of Candlelight trading firm's forging rooms. Melancholic's Smile was currently busy forging basic strengthened armor kits. There were simply too many players in White River City. With just the three of them producing the basic strengthened armor kits, it was impossible to satisfy the demand of so many players. Had they not produced a large number of the kits early on, their supply would have long since depleted. Sister Smile, there are 2 people on the first floor looking to discuss business with you. I understand. Like the others, have them wait in the reception room for now. I'll head over once I finish my work. But one of them is claiming to be Overwhelming Smile's guild leader. Overwhelming Smile's guild leader? Melancholic Smile could not help but pause. As one of the tyrannical guilds in White River City, it was far ahead of other guilds. Their funds and member count were also plain for all to see. A lifestyle guild's direction of development was completely different than combat guilds. In other words, there should not be any conflicts of interest between the two. However, a lifestyle guild did not possess any combat capabilities. When producing certain items, plenty of rare materials were required. Meanwhile, many of these materials dropped from dungeons. Hence, lifestyle guilds would usually cooperate with some combat guilds. In such a relationship, the combat guild in question would be responsible for supplying the rare materials, while the lifestyle guild would offer some discounts and give priority on sales of certain items to said combat guild. Ha! Just in time, Melancholic Smile said. I'll head over there now. Saying so, Melancholic Smile tidied up the materials on the table and headed downstairs. In the reception room on the first floor, many of White River City's guilds had sent representatives to the Candlelight trading firm to discuss potential cooperation. However, when a man and a woman entered, the entire reception room's atmosphere sank. Everyone in the room immediately focused their attention on this pair of new arrivals, the woman in particular. Practically every guild in White River City knew who she was. This woman was none other than the guild leader of Overwhelming Smile's White River City branch, Yulan. The Candlelight trading firm sure knows how to treat its guests, to actually make us wait here with other guilds. Feng Xianyang swept a glance at the reception room, frowning slightly with discontent at the firm's arrangements. Yulan did not comment on Feng Xianyang's statement. Instead, she only sat down and waited quietly. Although Overwhelming Smile was a powerful guild with ample funds, the Candlelight trading firm was no ordinary existence either. The fact that it had been able to purchase 2 of White River City's golden lands in such a short time displayed the firm's powerful backing. A short moment later, Melancholic Smile entered the reception room. Immediately, the atmosphere in the room relaxed significantly as the occupants promptly stood to welcome her, smiling. Everyone, please sit, Melancholic Smile said after glancing around the room. Every player in this room was a big shot at the peak of White River City. Melancholic Smile never thought that the day would come where she would become one of these supreme characters as well. Before this, she was merely a forging apprentice who guilds would casually chase away, someone who relied on forging to earn some meager living expenses. Regarding these high-ranked managers from various large guilds, they were all existences that she would have only admired from a distance. Yet now, every one of these powerful characters greeted her with fawning smiles. Compared to her previous life, it was as if she was in an entirely different world. When Melancholic Smile considered this, Her thoughts immediately switched to the man who had helped her rise to this position. If Shifeng had not been willing to accept her back then, she would most likely have still worried over her day-to-day life. She would still be one of the lifestyle players at the bottom layer of White River City, rejoicing over earning 1 or 2 silver a day. In contrast, when dealing with hundreds, or even thousands of gold, her current self could maintain indifference. Before her were the upper managers of the various large guilds in White River City. Among them, there was even the guild leader of Overwhelming Smile. One could just imagine how much pressure one would feel from having to discuss business with these people. Yet Melancholic Smile, who had never encountered such a scene, spoke as naturally as if she were sipping tea while enjoying light conversation. Seeing as everyone present wishes to cooperate with us, I will make things simple. We at Candlelight Trading Firm only have one requirement, Melancholic Smile calmly said. You must sell all of the materials your guilds have collected to us. Everything. We will purchase these materials at 60% market value. In return, the Candlelight Trading Firm will give your guilds a discount on your purchases here. The discounts available range from 5% up to, but not limited to, 15%. In addition, we will reserve some of the rarer items for you, giving you priority to purchase them. If you accept these terms, you may sign the agreement that has just been given out. If not, then you may leave. Melancholic Smile's statement was firm and confident. The managers of the various guilds immediately sucked in a breath of cold air, every one of them falling silent upon hearing the woman's conditions. This was fraud! If they sold all of the materials they had obtained to the Candlelight Trading Firm, what would be left for their own guilds? Moreover, the purchase price was only 60% of market value. Wouldn't they be better off selling their excess materials to the public? Most importantly, they could only receive meager discounts of 5% to 15%. Their guilds wouldn't gain much benefit from such a small discount. In the end, wasn't the Candlelight Trading Firm getting the better end of this deal? I've already said my piece. You can take your time to think it over. However, note that I will take back the contracts in 30 minutes. Although Melancholic Smile could feel everyone's murderous gazes, she paid them no heed. Instead, she simply turned to leave. It was as if her actions had said, if you want to sign, go ahead. If not, get lost. Suddenly, the various representatives, who had been so confident, fell mute. Wait a minute. Yin-Yang suddenly stood with a cold expression on his face. He glared at Melancholic Smile, sneering. Don't you think you are going too far with your demands? You should know that there are many materials that only guilds like ours can obtain. Independent teams are simply not strong enough to provide a supply. If our guilds join hands to cut off Candlelight's supply, do you really think you can continue doing business? Shocked, Yulan rushed to her feet, advising. Young Master Feng has gone a little too far with his words. I ask for Miss Melancholic's understanding. However, we have all come here with the intent to do business. There should be a process of negotiation at the very least. The way you cut us off will not benefit either side. Why don't we sit down and discuss things properly? Everyone in the reception room nodded in agreement. If every guild refused to sell their materials, how could Candlelight Trading Firm hope to continue its success in White River City? At the end of the day, a lifestyle guild was still a lifestyle guild. They were born to lower their heads to combat guilds. Ha! Your statement is indeed reasonable. After thinking it over for a moment, Melancholic Smile nodded as she looked towards Yin-Yang and Yulan. Smiling sweetly, she said, although what you've said is logical, I stand by my decision. Moreover, from this point onward, I retract Overwhelming Smile's contract. You two may leave now. You! Yin-Yang's eyes immediately became bloodshot as he nearly spat blood in rage. If not for the fact that they were still in the Candlelight Trading Firm, with the owner of the firm having absolute control over and being an invincible existence inside this place, he definitely would have killed Melancholic Smile by now. Yulan was similarly stunned by Melancholic Smile's words. Meanwhile, the upper managers of the various large guilds were also stupefied by this situation. In White River City, Overwhelming Smile was only second to Zero Wing. Yet Melancholic's smile had dismissed them with just a few words, showing no pretenses at all. This was simply too domineering. Chapter 506 Towers of Death. Chapter 506 Towers of Death. Underscore. After Melancholic's smile finished speaking, after a few moments, everyone in the reception room came back to their senses. However, they still stared at Melancholic's smile with surprise. Yulan had never expected things to develop in such a way. Melancholic's smile's performance had completely surpassed Yulan's expectations. Her firm rejection was even more unusual. "Miss Melancholic, I believe we have a misunderstanding," Yulan said after calming down. "Overwhelming Smile is not here to seek cooperation, but to invest. I believe that Miss Melancholic knows about Overwhelming Smile's financial prowess. With our help, the Candlelight trading firm will have no issues obtaining materials or funding. At the end of the day, Candlelight is not a combat guild, so its development is limited. It is restricted by the city. Candlelight might become White River City's #1 trading firm, but you can't just remain in one city and not branch out to others, right? After all, White River City's player population is not infinite, and you can only earn so much. I admit that Candlelight is very wealthy. However, purchasing golden lands in other cities requires sufficient reputation points there. Meanwhile, how can Candlelight hope to compete with the guilds that have been developing in said cities since the very beginning? By the time Candlelight's personnel gains sufficient reputation in other cities, other guilds will have long since purchased the best plots of land available. However, after we invest in Candlelight, the trading firm will not face such a restriction. Overwhelming Smile has plenty of personnel in other major cities, including the several cities neighboring White River City. As long as we have enough gold, we can purchase the most valuable land in every city throughout Starmoon Kingdom and establish the Candlelight trading firm all over the kingdom, saving you a lot of time and manpower. Is Miss Melancholic really not interested in such an opportunity? Yulan spoke confidently as she offered the attractive conditions. She had also hit the nail on the head by pointing out the Candlelight trading firm's weakness. Meanwhile, the fact that Yulan was able to make such a statement so confidently was all because of Overwhelming Smile's backer, Underworld. This was a feat that no other guild could ever accomplish, even first-rate guilds. Yulan's offer sorely tempted the other managers of the guilds in the reception room. Only, they were somewhat disappointed that the Candlelight trading firm would no longer be theirs. They could already imagine the Candlelight trading firm's flourishing future. One side had the advantage of manpower and resources, while the other had coins and popular shops. The cooperation between the two was practically a match made in heaven. Yulan really is amazing. It's as expected of someone fancied by Underworld's elders. Feng Xianyang, who had initially been overwhelmed by his rage, silently praised Yulan as he listened to the woman. He snuck a peek at Melancholic's smile from the corner of his eyes, his heart filled with joy when he saw her silence. To a trading firm, particularly a trading firm with hot-selling commodities, what they needed the most was not materials, but a market to sell those commodities. Meanwhile, Overwhelming Smile just so happened to be capable of providing that market. This method of persuasion was far more effective than any threat. At this moment, Melancholic Smile opened her mouth and spoke. "Your conditions are tempting, but you may leave now. Everyone else, you have 30 minutes left to consider our offer. If you do not wish to cooperate, you may leave. I have other matters to attend to, so I won't accompany you any longer." Saying so, Melancholic Smile left the reception room, never once turning back. From the moment she had entered the room, she had acted as if she did not care about any of the representatives. Is she really not tempted? Yulan was stunned. With such huge potential profits, no sane trading firm would reject their offer. Even if Melancholic Smile rejected them eventually, it should be based on too harsh conditions. Yet, before they could even state their conditions, she had turned them away. Just what sort of situation was this? Before Yulan could make sense of the situation, the upper managers of the other guilds began signing their contracts, having already thrown their cooperation conditions out the window. Watching this, Yulan suddenly came to a realization. Melancholic smile had displayed her might, killing the chicken to scare the monkeys. They just so happened to be that chicken. Feng Xianyang had also realized their situation. This had all been due to him voicing his rejection, becoming Melancholic Smile's target as a result. Despite this revelation angering him greatly, regret filled his heart. Just why had he been so eager to shoot off his mouth? As for encouraging Overwhelming Smile to face off against the Candlelight trading firm, that was simply impossible. Lifestyle players did not leave the city at all. If they remained in the city, who could do anything to them? Lifestyle players were unlike combat players, who relied heavily on their levels and equipment. Even if lifestyle players were killed until they fell back to level 0, so long as their lifestyle skills remained, they would feel no effect whatsoever. It seems that we can only hasten our own firm's establishment. Ilan sighed. Things were becoming much more troublesome than she had initially expected. However, the Candlelight trading firm had also given her a reminder. I have heard that Maple City's branch almost has enough reputation. We might as well develop our trade in Maple City. Moreover, the lands there are much cheaper. If we form an alliance with the other cities to target the Candlelight trading firm, sooner or later, we can defeat it as well. Okay, leave that to me. At this moment, murderous intent filled Feng Xuanyang's eyes. Watching Melancholic Smile's departing figure, he revealed a sinister smile as he said, Though the trading firm itself is unwilling to cooperate, I refuse to believe that every worker is of the same opinion. I'll poach every single one of Candlelight's forgers. We'll see how long Candlelight lasts then. If a trading firm did not have a supply of goods, customers naturally would not visit it. It would be useless even if the trading firm occupied one of the city's golden lands. The fact that the Candlelight trading firm had become White River City's #1 trading firm so quickly was completely due to the basic strengthened armor kits. Otherwise, how could it possibly surpass the Starstreak trading firm? While Feng Xianyang plotted ways to poach lifestyle players from the Candlelight trading firm, Shifeng had arrived at the Twin Tower Highlands. The Twin Tower Highlands was a level 45 to level 50 map. It could be considered a country within a country. Unlike the monsters in low-level maps, the monsters here were mostly intelligent orcs that fought and lived in tribes. If players were not careful, rather than hunting their prey, they very well might become prey themselves. To God's Domain's current players, the Twin Tower Highlands was definitely a forbidden land. Aside from the level suppression, the difference in attributes was already quite vast. However, Shifeng did not care about any of that. His own attributes had long since surpassed the standards of the current players. It was especially true after he had equipped the fragmented legendary ranked Heavenly Dragon's Breath. In terms of attributes, he could easily match level 40 ordinary players. Without level suppression, a 5-level difference in attributes was nothing to Shifeng. Fortunately, Shifeng was very familiar with the Twin Tower Highlands. He had arrived at the core area of the Twin Tower Highlands, the Towers of Death, without so much as encountering a single monster. Dark clouds hid the tops of the 2 tall towers, preventing one from seeing them with a single glance. A thick layer of death also surrounded the towers as cold wind billowed around them. Tall ramparts surrounded the massive Towers of Death. An army of orcs patrolled the walls. Overall, the Towers of Death looked like an impregnable fortress. This was the best location for Shifeng to grind for the light stone forging designs. This should be it. Shifeng activated Wind Rider and the Ring of Nothingness and flew up to the tall walls. Sweeping a glance over the numerous level 47 orcs below the ramparts, a grin appeared on his face. Chapter 507 Explosive Power. Chapter 507 Explosive Power. Not only did the Towers of Death resemble a fortress, but there were also tens of thousands of monsters wandering inside their walls. It was simply impossible to infiltrate without a large team of more than 100 players. However, it was also why the Towers of Death were a good grinding spot. Although the common monsters, the hot-blooded orc warriors, behind the wall seemed to be covered in steel-like muscles, in reality, their strength was only an illusion. They were actually quite weak. Moreover, they were all melee monsters. As long as the team had several powerful AoE classes, the Towers of Death would become a leveling heaven. Hot-blooded Orc Warrior, Orc Common Monster. Level 47. HP 30,000/30,000. To players of a similar level, these Orc Warriors were very easy to deal with. To Sherfone, who was only level 26 right now, they were just as easy to defeat. The only challenge was the fact that these hot-blooded warriors normally moved in groups of 100 or more, with an elite-ranked hot-blooded Orc captain leading each company. The Orc captains were much larger than their common counterparts. They were fully protected by a suit of plate armor, and wielded a war saber and large shield in each hand. Most importantly, these Orc captains had an aura effect that could increase the attack speed and damage of nearby hot-blooded Orc warriors by 30%. Hot-blooded Orc Captain, Orc, Elite Rank. Level 48. HP 200,000/200,000. Even a 50-man team would struggle against such a company of Orcs. As for 20-man teams, they could only escape for their lives. Teams that came to grind here would usually eliminate the Orc Captain first, sending several assassins with high burst damage and a bombardment from the ranged attackers, getting rid of the Orc Captain in the shortest amount of time possible. That way, the hot-blooded Orc warriors would be fish in a barrel, easy to annihilate. However, Sherfeng's level was too low right now. It would be very difficult for him to charge into the group of Orcs and kill the Orc Captain swiftly, hence why Sherfeng had flown up to the ramparts. The ramparts were very tall, and it would not be easy for one to reach the top quickly, especially common monsters like the hot-blooded Orc warriors. Monsters like them could only use the only staircase. Moreover, it was a long way from the bottom to the top of the stairs, and it would take the Orc warriors quite some time to reach the top of the walls. The Orc captain, however, was different. The captain's strength was impressive, and he could easily reach the top of the walls with just a few jumps. In the past, many people had used this method to grind Orcs and level up. After Sherfeng positioned himself on the rampart, he switched the 7 luminaries' rings aura of wind to the aura of fire. Simultaneously, he activated the ice blue devil flame, pale blue flames suddenly covering his entire body. With the effects of the aura of fire and the ice blue devil flame combined, his damage instantly increased by 60%. The combined effects were no weaker than when he activated a berserk skill. Moreover, these effects lasted indefinitely, and had no side effects whatsoever. He then took out the blazing meteor and threw it at a hot-blooded Orc warrior. Shio! The blazing meteor streaked across the air like a shooting star, instantly striking at a hot-blooded Orc warrior who patrolled below the fortress walls. -904. Although there was no level suppression, a level 47 monster was far superior to a level 20+ monster regarding both defense and attack power. Sherfeng only had the attributes of a level 40, or so ordinary player. His damage was very limited. Intruder! The Orc warrior bellowed angrily as he turned towards Sherfeng on top of the wall. Immediately, the entire company of hot-blooded Orcs also discovered Sherfeng. However, as the wall was too large, they could only frantically dash towards one of the distant staircases. The armored hot-blooded Orc captain, unlike his allies, simply bent his legs and jumped. In just a moment, the Orc captain had jumped up to half the height of the wall. The captain stabbed his saber into the sturdy wall. Using his saber as a foothold, the captain jumped once again, reaching the top of the ramparts. His robust and powerful hand grabbed and tugged on the chain wrapped around his wrist. In the blink of an eye, the saber, which was connected to the chain, returned to the Orc captain's hand. The entire process was smooth and only took an instant. The Orc captain was like a martial arts expert who could walk on walls and fly through the eaves of buildings. However, Sherfeng was not the slightest bit surprised by the Orc captain's actions. Elite monsters' intelligence and combat techniques at this level were not the slightest bit inferior to the professional fighters in real life. In some aspects, these elite monsters were even more amazing than professional fighters. The hot-blooded Orc captain looked at Sherfeng, who was 10 yards away, with a bloodthirsty fury in his crimson eyes. Raising his shield, he used charge and dashed towards Sherfone. The orc captain was over 2 meters tall. With his mass and speed, he was like a small car rushing towards Sherfone. One could just imagine the consequences of such a collision. Without hesitation, Sherfone activated Purgatory Power, raising his damage by another 30% and attack speed by 100%. He then dashed forward to meet the orc captain's charge head-on. Just as the orc captain was about to send Sherfone into a fainted state, at the moment between life and death, Sherfone used silent steps. Not only had Sherfone avoided the fainted effect of the orc captain's charge, but he also managed to appear behind the orc captain. Die! Sherfone shouted. In the next moment, the abyssal blade and the Purgatory's shadow in Sherfeng's hands released a powerful blinding light. The crimson flames that covered both swords caused the surrounding temperatures to soar. Flame burst. Dazzling streaks of light shot out from Sherfeng's hands, piercing the hot-blooded orc captain's armor. The orc captain's armor could stop neither the scorching heat of the flames nor the sharp edges of the swords. The blazing abyssal blade easily penetrated the sturdy armor, stabbing the orc captain's vital point. -9,120, -18,160, -9,234, -27, 548. Frightening damages appeared above the hot-blooded orc captain's head, one after another. In the blink of an eye, the orc captain had lost close to half of his HP. The orc captain bellowed at the damage he received. Responding quickly, the orc captain used War Stomp, causing all enemies within a range of 6 yards to enter a fainted state for 3 seconds. However, Sherfone, who had already grasped the flowing water realm, had long since seen the orc captain's intentions. The instant the orc captain lifted his leg, Sherfone swung his sword. Abyssal Bind. When the orc captain's feet were only several centimeters from the ground, 9 pitch-black chains emerged from the ground and bound the captain, restricting all of his movements. Taking this opportunity, Sherfone launched a barrage of attacks towards the orc captain. Due to Abyssal Bind reducing the orc captain's defense by 100%, Sherfeng's flame burst skill became even more powerful. Now, each attack dealt around -20,000 damage, while double critical hits dealt around -40,000 damage. Before Sherfone could exhaust the 12 instances of flame burst, the hot-blooded orc captain was already dead, dropping a few silver coins and a piece of equipment. From beginning to end, Sherfone took less than 4 seconds to kill the hot-blooded orc captain. Meanwhile, only now did the hot-blooded orc warriors finish climbing the stairs, reaching the top of the rampart. However, there were still more than 60 yards between them. After collecting the drops, Sherfone used Skywheel's sword on the orc warriors who were 40 yards away from him. Golden divine swords descended from the sky, sealing the hot-blooded orc warriors in a radius of 20 yards for 4 seconds. At the same time, the orc warriors each received over -4,000 damage, while some received close to -10,000 critical damage. With a single attack, the hot-blooded orc warriors lost close to half of their 20,000 HP. While the hot-blooded orc warriors ceaselessly bellowed with anger, Sherfone followed up his attack with Firestorm. Suddenly, heavenly fire descended from the skies, annihilating the company of orc warriors. Items scattered across the ground around the orc warriors' corpses. Meanwhile, Sherfeng's experience bar rose at a rate visible to the naked eye. Sherfone marveled at the dropped items on the ground. Fragmented legendary items and epic items really are frightening. Originally, Sherfone thought he would have some troubles dealing with these hot-blooded orc warriors. Now, it would seem that he had worried for nothing. Chapter 508 Successive Promotion. Chapter 508 Successive Promotion. After defeating the first batch of hot-blooded orc warriors, Sherfone had a preliminary understanding of his current strength. He was now confident about what he should do and how far he should go. Previously, he had chosen to lure the group with the least number of orcs as a precaution. Later, so long as he did not lure 2 groups at once, he should be able to defeat an army of 200 or 300 orcs. With this, his chances of obtaining the light stone forging design should be significantly higher. There sure are a lot of dropped items. Shurfong muttered as he arranged the loot from the orc warriors. He had picked up a total of 6 silver. That was more than half a day's earnings for an elite player. The orc warriors had also dropped plenty of scrap items and materials. In total, he had earned nearly 12 silver from killing a single batch. If a piece of level 40 bronze equipment dropped, he could instantly earn another 80 silver or more. However, this result was only due to Shurfeng's 5 points of luck. Otherwise, it was impossible for a group of orc warriors to drop so much money and so many items. Following which, Shurfong continued searching for patrol teams that he could take on while he waited for his skills to cool down. Firestorm, in particular, had a long cooldown of 5 minutes. As soon as the 5 minutes were up, Shurfong would immediately lure another wave of monsters. Shurfong required less than 30 seconds to take care of a wave of hot-blooded orc warriors. In other words, he could clear 1 wave every 6 minutes, and 10 waves in an hour. As the orcs were level 47 monsters, they already gave abundant EXP. In addition, as Shurfong was challenging monsters of a higher level, he could obtain bonus EXP of up to 20 times. Despite Shurfeng's class doubling the amount of EXP he required to level up, in little more than an hour, he reached level 27. To reach level 28, he just needed to continue grinding for another hour or so. Although the amount of EXP he received was indeed frightening, Shurfong was more excited over the fact that he had obtained 2 light stone forging designs. With 2 forging designs, he could nurture 2 gold mines. Also, when Divine Providence's cooldown completed, Shurfong stopped to open Twilight treasure chests, acquiring plenty of good items. Among them were some recipes for potions such as the Intermediate Strength Potion, Basic Protection Potion, and Basic Magic Damage Potion. These were all potions that players around level 40 would commonly use. Only, the recipes for these potions were impossible for current players to obtain. In addition, Shurfong had also obtained some level 30 secret silver and fine gold equipment, which he intended to use to replenish the guild's warehouse. While Shurfong enjoyed his grind, Melancholic's smile suddenly contacted him. Through the screen, Shurfong could tell that, though Melancholic's smile seemed somewhat tensed, there was a hint of pride and excitement in her eyes. Guild leader, just as you predicted, Overwhelming Smile paid us a visit, though I've already chased them away. The other guilds have also agreed to cooperate with us, Melancholic's smile said slowly. Also, just as you expected, after we chased them away, they immediately began contacting our guild's forgers and forging apprentices. Although Uncle Ironheart and Coco rejected their offers, many of the forging apprentices in the guild were unable to resist the tempting offers and have already applied to dissolve their contract with us to join Overwhelming Smile. From what I learned from those forging apprentices, it seems that they are heading to Maple City to develop themselves. Although Melancholic Smile had tried to dissuade those who intended to leave, there were bound to be some who could not resist Overwhelming Smile's astronomical offer. Melancholic Smile could not force these people to stay. Fortunately, Shurfong had long since prepared for such a situation. All lifestyle players who joined the Horizon Alliance were required to sign a contract. Under this contract, the Horizon Alliance would provide all materials, forging designs, forging rooms, and other necessities for the lifestyle player. The lifestyle player could also obtain a certain amount of commission from the items they made. This commission would be determined according to the lifestyle player's skill level. The more skilled they were, the higher their commission would be, with the highest possible being 20% of profit. However, these generous benefits came with a condition. Any lifestyle player wishing to dissolve their contracts was required to erase all the lifestyle classes they had taken on. In other words, upon leaving the Horizon Alliance, these lifestyle players would have to start all over again. That way, it would be impossible for these poached players to benefit other guilds in a short amount of time. Only due to their past experiences, it would cost less for other guilds to nurture these players. It was not easy for a lifestyle guild to nurture a lifestyle player. The initial investment included materials and forging designs, particularly those rare forging designs. These items required immense effort to obtain. So, how could they possibly let others take advantage of them? Any lifestyle player who had learned rare forging designs was also required to compensate the Horizon Alliance for this loss. Normally, few lifestyle players would willingly choose to develop themselves elsewhere. However, with Overwhelming Smile's reckless poaching, there were bound to be some who could not resist the temptation. Heading to Maple City, huh? Sherfone pondered for a moment before saying, "It seems that they plan to develop trade in Maple City before joining the competition in White River City." Although Overwhelming Smile had been nurturing their own lifestyle players all this time as well, without their own shop, it was not only very inconvenient to sell their products, but the cost of the items would also increase. In particular, by selling their items through the auction house, they would incur a massive processing fee. For small items, they might not even recover the cost, let alone make a profit. Maple City was Overwhelming Smile's domain. It was very easy for the guild to develop its trade there, and the same went for acquiring land and reputation. By the time Overwhelming Smile possessed sufficient capital, it would be a lot easier for it to deal with the Candlelight trading firm. At the very least, both sides would be on equal footing. Afterward, Overwhelming Smile could just use the simplest way to deal with the Candlelight trading firm: wage a price war. They want another war of attrition? Sherfone could not help but laugh. Unfortunately, Overwhelming Smile no longer possessed such an opportunity. Sherfone then said, "Smile, instruct someone to begin purchasing advanced stones and magic essences in bulk, and don't just buy from White River City, buy from other cities as well. Buy as many as you can. However, this must be done secretly. Do not let other guilds discover our actions." Although the Candlelight trading firm held a significant advantage due to the basic strength and armor kits, the production volume for the kits was simply too low. It lacked competitiveness. However, it was a different story for light stones. "Okay, I'll head out and buy them myself right now," Melancholic Smile said. After Sherfone gave his instructions, he resumed grinding for more forging designs. For the next several dozen hours, Sherfone grinded the hot-blooded orc warriors like a madman. During this time, his experience bar rose rapidly, his level increasing from level 27 to level 30. His leveling speed was simply unmatched. However, compared to the EXP spent on increasing his own level, Sherfone had expended even more EXP on the 7 Luminaries ring. He had leveled up the 7 Luminaries ring twice, upgrading it to level 7. Just as Sherfone was about to investigate the level 7 Luminaries ring's new power, suddenly, the gates of the Towers of Death opened. In the next moment, a roar that shook even the heavens emerged from behind the gates. As the roar grew louder, Sherfone saw a massive orc walk out. This orc wore exquisite armor, and had a black cape draped over his back. Upon the appearance of this massive orc, the orcs outside the Towers of Death went into a frenzy. It was as if they were welcoming the arrival of their king. "Why has the Orc King appeared here?" Sherfone could not help his surprise. Chapter 509 Mythic. Chapter 509 Mythic. The valiant and extraordinary Orc King slowly walked up to an altar before the Towers of Death, constantly muttering incantations as he approached the pitch-black altar. Suddenly, countless blood-red runes emerged from the altar. The sky also dimmed as strong winds blew. Countless hot-blooded orcs gathered beneath the altar. If one looked down from the ramparts, they would discover a black mass of tens of thousands of orcs within the fortress walls. After these orcs gathered around the black altar, they fell to their knees and prayed. This spectacular scene amazed even Sherfone. Just what are they trying to do? Sherfone was utterly confused. The Towers of Death of the Twin Tower Highlands were, in reality, a level 50, 100-man team dungeon. In the past, Sherfone had raided this dungeon many times, so he had a relatively good understanding of the Towers of Death. However, today was the first time Sherfone had seen something this odd. In particular, the Orc King who had emerged from the Towers of Death was the final boss of the dungeon, Orc King Trezek. When challenging the Hell mode difficulty of the dungeon, Orc King Trezek was a level 54 Grand Lord. Meanwhile, the Orc King Trezek standing on the altar right now was a level 60 mythic monster. Monsters in God's domain occupied multiple ranks. From weakest to strongest, These ranks were Common, Elite, Special Elite, Chieftain, Lord, High Lord, Great Lord, Grand Lord. Standing above Grand Lord was Mythic. Orc King Trezek, Mythic Monster. Level 60. HP 90, 000/90, 000/000. Upon seeing the Orc King's information, even Sherfone could not believe his own eyes. A Mythic Monster! A Mythic Monster was slightly stronger than even a Tier 4 class. Moreover, with that ridiculous amount of HP, any Tier 4 party of the same level that attempted to raid Orc King Trezek would be beaten senseless. At the very least, a 50-man team of Tier 4 players was necessary to raid the Orc King. Tier 4 classes already stood at the top of God's domain. It was extremely difficult to reach this tier, so how could it possibly be easy to gather 50 Tier 4 players? Not to mention, players could only begin challenging their Tier 2 class change quests at level 50. They were still far from reaching Tier 4. To players below level 60, Orc King Trezek was practically invincible. However, it was because of this that Sherfeng's interest grew. The final boss of the Towers of Death had actually left the dungeon to pray. Moreover, the boss's rank had risen to Mythic. There was no way Sherfone could grind the hot-blooded orcs at the moment. The area beneath the ramparts was packed with warriors and captains right now. If he attacked any one of them, he might attract every monster beneath the walls, including the Orc King Trezek. They would annihilate him, leaving no room for escape. I'm interested to see just what this is about. In any case, Sherfone was not in a hurry. He took a seat in the corner of the wall and observed the situation at the altar. However, the orc's prayer was relatively long. Even after over half an hour, these orcs continued to pray. Out of frustration, Sherfone began arranging the contents of his bag. After grinding for dozens of hours, Sherfone had lost count of how many hot-blooded orc warriors he had killed. The items they had dropped had nearly filled his bag. Had he not thrown away some of the worthless scrap items, not even his super-large bag would be able to hold all of the loot. Sherfone had to admit that the Towers of Death were indeed an efficient place to farm light stone forging designs. With the addition of his 5 points of luck, his harvest was even more frightening. In total, Sherfone had obtained 141 light stone forging designs. He had also collected close to 30 gold and some random scrap items and materials. If ordinary players came here to grind, they could definitely make a fortune overnight. 30 gold coins. Although the value of gold coins continuously depreciated, each gold coin was still worth more than 7,000 credits. In other words, Sherfone had earned nearly 210,000 credits in a single day. However, none of these were Sherfeng's greatest prizes. His most valuable gain was the promotion of the 7 Luminaries ring and the equipment he had obtained from opening treasure chests. After upgrading the 7 Luminaries ring to level 7, its skills all received massive transformations. If not for the ring's information labeling it as an epic item, Sherfone would have thought it was a fragmented legendary item. 7 Luminaries ring, replica, ring, epic rank. Level 20, level 80, current level, 30. Equipment requirement, strength 200. Attributes will be adjusted according to user's level. Strength plus 64, agility plus 60, intelligence plus 52, endurance plus 60, vitality plus 55. Damage plus 10%. Maximum HP plus 15%. Ignore levels plus 10. All skills plus 2 levels. All items level requirement reduced by 5 levels. Additional skill dash. 7 Luminaries aura. There are 7 different auras: earth, water, wind, fire, time, illusion, and space. Only one aura can be used each time, and there will be a cooldown of 1 minute when changing between auras. Aura of Earth. Level 7, requires 200 million EXP to upgrade to level 8. Defense increased by 60%. Damage taken reduced by 55%. Activatable skill dash. Absolute defense. Become immune to all damage for 5 seconds. Cooldown, 1 minute 20 seconds. Aura of Water. Level 7, requires 200 million EXP to upgrade to level 8. Received healing increased by 100%. Cast consumption reduced by 50%. Activatable skill dash. Life Bloom. Heals selected target for 30% HP every second for 40 seconds. Cooldown, 1 minute 30 seconds. Aura of Wind. Level 7, requires 200 million EXP to upgrade to level 8. Movement speed increased by 60%. Attack speed increased by 60%. Agility increased by 50%. Activatable skill dash. Wind Rider. Enables temporary flight and movement speed increase of 220% for 24 seconds. Cooldown, 2 minutes. Aura of Fire. Level 7, requires 200 million EXP to upgrade to level 8. Damage increased by 50%. Target's defense reduced by 60%. Activatable skill dash. Firestorm. Inflicts 1000% damage within a range of 30 by 30 yards for 6 seconds. Cooldown 5 minutes. Aura of Time. Level 7, requires 500 million EXP to upgrade to level 8. Cooldown of all skills reduced by 40%. Enemies within a 150-yard radius will have their movement speed and attack speed reduced by 40%, and cooldown of skills increased by 50%. Activatable skill dash. Absolute Time. Prevents enemies within a radius of 100 yards from using any skills or tools for 24 seconds. Cooldown, 2 minutes 30 seconds. Aura of Illusion. Level 7, requires 500 million EXP to upgrade to level 8. All attributes increased by 40%. Enemies within a 200-yard radius will have all their attributes reduced by 40%. Activatable skill dash. Fantasy World. Immunity to all magic damage and 20% of magic damage received will be converted to healing to recover player's HP for 20 seconds. Cooldown 3 minutes. Aura of Space. Level 7, requires 500 million EXP to upgrade to level 8. Immunity to all control and restricting effects. Activatable skill dash. Space Movement. Instantly move to any location within a radius of 600,000 yards. Cooldown 4 minutes. After the 7 Luminaries Rings promotion, just one of its auras could rival the attributes of a fragmented legendary item. Meanwhile, the 7 Luminaries Ring had 7 interchangeable auras. Calling it a fragmented legendary item was by no means an exaggeration. Aside from the 7 Luminaries Ring, Sherfone valued the Tier 1 set equipment he had gained from the Twilight treasure chests. First, Sherfone obtained another 2 set pieces of the Yin-Yang Walker set equipment for Tier 1 Guardian Knights, putting him at a total of 3 set pieces. In addition, he had also obtained the Mana Storm set equipment for Tier 1 Elementalists. Unfortunately, he only had 2 set pieces. He had also fortunately obtained 3 set pieces of the Dark Melody set equipment for Tier 1 Assassins. He had 1 set piece of the Forest Guard set equipment for Tier 1 Rangers. He had also gained 2 set pieces of the Hurricane set equipment for Tier 1 Swordsmen. Finally, he obtained 1 set piece of the Brave Heart set equipment for Tier 1 Shield Warriors. Sherfone had only gone through a small portion of the Twilight treasure chests in his possession. It was fully possible for him to collect a Tier 1 set equipment for every class. Suddenly, why has the sky darkened? While Sherfone had been busy organizing his bag, he suddenly realized the light had dimmed, visibility becoming even poorer than during nighttime. Taking a look below the ramparts, he noticed that a change had finally occurred at the Black Altar. Chapter 510 God Descends. Chapter 510 God Descends. At this moment, the Black Altar radiated a blood-red glow. In the darkness, it was an extraordinarily eye-catching. The ground surrounding the altar also began emitting plumes of bright red mist. A small cyclone that had appeared above the altar tugged the mist towards its core. Gradually, the space in the storm's center gradually began to crack. A moment later, this spatial crack formed a portal. The instant the spatial portal was complete, the area around the Towers of Death froze. It was as if a separate, miniature world had formed around the Towers of Death, and no object from the outside world could affect anything that occurred inside this place. All of Shifeng's communication with the outside world was blocked as well, every name on his friends list having turned a dull gray. He was unable to contact anybody. The surrounding air felt as heavy as mercury, and Shifeng felt as if his every action was heavily restrained. Inside this region, Shifeng felt like a candle flickering in the wind. His life could be extinguished at any moment. Meanwhile, this was all due to the horrific pressure from the spatial portal. Just what is inside that spatial portal? Shifeng widened his eyes in shock. He tried to glimpse at what was inside the spatial portal, yet, as if a strange power shrouded the portal, not even Shifeng, with his extraordinary dynamic vision, could see anything inside it. However, there was one thing that his brain urged him to do right now. Escape. The pressure leaking from the spatial portal was sufficient to freeze the entire space surrounding the Towers of Death and create a separate world. This was the first time Shifeng had ever encountered such a situation. While Shifeng struggled to recover from his shock, the hundreds of thousands of orcs surrounding the pitch-black altar suddenly turned into blood mist. Moreover, the transformation had been completely silent. The originally crowded fortress around the Towers of Death had suddenly become a ghost town. The abrupt change was enough to instill utter terror. For a time, the blood-red runes around the altar forcefully sucked in the blood mist, intensifying the rune's glow. Simultaneously, the portal above the altar grew, the pressure it emitted increasing as well. The air that had previously felt as heavy as mercury now felt as dense as fine steel. Now, Shifeng could not move in the slightest. Is this divine might? A possibility suddenly flashed in Shifeng's mind. Divine might. It was something that Shifeng had felt more than a few times before. As long as divine might was activated, any players within the affected area would receive various sorts of suppression. Moreover, the wider the gap in tiers, the greater the suppression would be. Only players of the same tier would be unaffected by divine might. However, of all the divine might Shifeng had experienced before, not one had rendered him completely incapable of movement. Before Shifeng could reflect more on the situation, the Orc King Trezek finally finished chanting his incantation. Suddenly, the area around the Towers of Death fell eerily silent. Shifeng noticed hints of excitement and longing on Trezek's ferocious face. At this moment, the spatial portal blotted out the area above the black altar. If the portal descended now, Shifeng did not doubt that it would devour the massive black altar hole. However, the black portal did not descend. Instead, the portal released a loud sound resembling the cracking of glass. It was as if something inside the portal were trying to smash its way through the mysterious power surrounding it. Shifeng began to have a bad feeling about this. If a god truly descended, then he would die with 100% certainty. A god possessed extremely acute senses. Even over 1,000-yard distance, a god could discover a player long before that player discovered said god. In the past, plenty of players had been very interested in gods. Unfortunately, many Tier 4 players had not been able to get even 3,000 yards close to the gods before the divine beings swatted them like flies. Meanwhile, Tier 5 players had survived the wrath of gods, but only Tier 6 players qualified to challenge them. Even then, they only qualified. At this moment, Shifeng was less than 2,000 yards away from the altar. If a god descended, it would discover him immediately and send him to his death with a single slap. It shouldn't be able to descend, right? Shifeng could feel that the mysterious power surrounding the spatial portal was already at its limits. In the blink of an eye, a gigantic hand that blotted out the sky suddenly emerged from the portal. In the face of this hand, even the massive altar seemed like a small toy. Fortunately, the instant this hand descended, countless golden chains suddenly emerged from the sky. These golden chains immediately bound the hand, preventing it from moving. The chains of order! Shifeng breathed a sigh of relief at the sudden appearance of these fine chains. Sure enough, it is impossible for a god to appear here. Although the golden chains were thin, they contained an immeasurable amount of power. Even gods could not fight these chains. Yet, this massive hand abruptly twitched, and a single item fell from its palm. This item released a dazzling golden glow that illuminated the entire fortress around the Towers of Death. The moment this item landed in front of the Orc King, the gigantic hand in the sky retreated through the spatial portal. Peace returned to the Towers of Death. Did that god break open the spatial portal just to give the Orc King an item? Sherfone was utterly stunned. An item that was obtained from a god through the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of orcs. Even if Sherfone could not clearly see what that item was, but judging from how the Orc King had willingly made such an immense sacrifice, it was definitely an extraordinary treasure. If he could steal it. However, Sherfone promptly shook his head, removing the thought from his mind. Only those who wanted to give up on life would attempt to steal an item from a mythic monster. It would be no different than trying to steal from White River City's magistrate, the Tier 4 Great Wizard Weissman. Just as Sherfone was about to turn and leave, a figure suddenly came flying towards the Towers of Death from a distance. The figure flew at a tremendous speed, several times faster than even Sherfone when he had Wind Rider activated. In just a few seconds, the originally seed-sized figure grew to the size of an ordinary human. Sky Knight? Sherfone could not help his shock. The new arrival was actually a human NPC. Moreover, it was the Tier 4 hidden class Sky Knight. His body exuding a multicolored brilliance, the Sky Knight immediately charged towards the Orc King. Meanwhile, as if receiving the arrival of a great enemy, the Orc King Trezek immediately tried to collect the flashing golden treasure. However, the Sky Knight had obviously prepared for this situation. With a shout, he pointed his sword towards the heavens. Suddenly, a titanic golden sword appeared above the Orc King. This golden sword then transformed into a streak of light as it descended towards the mythic Trezek. Sherfeng's jaw dropped. This Sky Knight actually knew the Tier 4 forbidden move, Firmament Flash. Forbidden moves were taboo skills in God's domain. Firmament Flash was labeled taboo, because the skill possessed overly destructive power. In addition, the skill was extremely difficult to learn. Classes of the same tier had no way of learning it. The Tier 4 Firmament Flash could rival even a Tier 5 skill. Even though the Orc King Trezek was a mythic monster, an existence slightly above Tier 4 classes, when facing an attack with the might of a Tier 5 skill, it had no choice but to protect its life first. The Orc King Trezek immediately unsheathed his blood-red greatsword. Releasing an angry roar, a frightening aura suddenly surged forth from his body. It seemed as if the Orc King had activated a berserk skill that boosted his strength to an astonishing degree. He swung his greatsword, sending a streak of blood-red light slashing at the descending holy sword. Boom! 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 Suddenly, the land around the Towers of Death shook. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. What? Sherfone was stunned. The Orc King Trezek had actually defended against the Sky Knight's Firmament Flash. At this moment, however, the Sky Knight already stood before the golden treasure, his hand stretching out to snatch the item. Just as the Sky Knight was about to grasp the golden treasure, Sherfone suddenly noticed a mocking grin on the Orc King's face. Ah! The instant the Sky Knight touched the golden treasure, he suddenly released a tragic scream. Suddenly his body transformed into countless particles of light. Chapter 511 God Crystal. Chapter 511 God Crystal. A Tier 4 Sky Knight had been a tyrant qualified to rule over a large city, yet such a dominant existence had died without offering even the slightest of resistance. Sherfone even wondered if he were hallucinating. Is it a trap specifically targeting the Sky Knight? Sherfone watched the dispersing particles of light, inwardly relieved. Prior to this, he had even considered stealing the treasure from the Orc King Trezek. Fortunately, he had given up on that idea. Otherwise, he would have lost his life just like the Sky Knight. The trap could instantly kill a Tier 4 Sky Knight, not even leaving behind a body. It was clear that this trap's damage was not ordinary. Although players would not face true death, the consequences of such an attack definitely would not end with just the loss of EXP and equipment. It was highly possible that the players would be affected as well. At the very minimum, players' immortal souls would receive damage, preventing them from logging into God's domain for a time. However, this was still not the most severe possibility. In some circumstances, players who died might even have to delete their accounts after reviving. It was possible that the Sky Knight's death fit into this category. After the Sky Knight died, Trezek kept his blood-red greatsword and slowly walked towards the treasure. Looking at the treasure with its golden divine glow, a grin on the Orc King's ferocious face, Trezek then began chanting his incantation once again. Suddenly, golden runes formed around the treasure, wrapping around the item, as if sealing it. Is it not a trap? As Sherfone watched the Orc King's actions, it was clear that the trap was not meant for the mythic monster. Instead, there should be something special about the treasure that prevented others from touching it. However, as the Sky Knight had not known this, he had been erased out of existence. Since the Orc King knew that he could not touch the treasure, he knew exactly what kind of item that treasure was, hence why he sealed it. Should I take this risk? Sherfone hesitated. Before, as the Orc King and the treasure were too close, by the time Sherfone made it to the treasure, the Orc King would have already claimed it. However, now that the Orc King sealed the treasure, he had a chance to steal it. Sherfone could take the opportunity while the Orc King was busy to sneak over. And as the treasure was sealed, he could steal it. However, Sherfone had also witnessed the Orc King's power. Trezek had managed to block even the Firmament Flash, which had the power of a Tier 5 skill. Dealing with a Tier 1 player like him would be child's play for the Orc King. It was possible that, before he could even arrive before the treasure, the Orc King's great sword would have already devoured his life. Moreover, escaping after he collected the treasure was also a problem. With the Orc King Trezek's attributes, even if Sherfeng's speed were several times faster, he would not escape from the Orc King's clutches. Seeing as the number of golden runes surrounding the treasure had gradually increased, it was clear that the time remaining for the completion of the treasure's seal grew shorter and shorter. Sherfone looked at the 7 luminaries ring wrapped around his finger. Suddenly, he activated gravity liberation and jumped down from the wall. He then made a dash for the black altar. It would be a pity if he did not at least try to steal a treasure that could tempt even a Tier 4 NPC. Moreover, after the 7 luminaries ring had upgraded to level 7, the ring's skills had undergone massive improvements. Sherfone could totally give stealing the treasure a try. Above the black altar, Orc King Trezek focused on chanting his incantation. Meanwhile, Sherfone slowly approached the altar. A mythic monster's perception range was not as wide as a god's. Normally, that range was around 100 yards. Hence, Sherfone still had a chance. If the Orc King's perception range were any wider, Sherfone would have no choice but to flee. When Sherfone was about 100 yards from the Orc King, he halted his steps. Sure enough, the Orc King had yet to notice his presence. Sherfone then walked along the distance of 100 yards, searching for the location closest to the treasure before settling down and waiting for the moment the treasure's seal finished. Line after line of golden runes hovered around the treasure. This was the first time Sherfone had ever witnessed such a complicated sealing ritual. Just as the sealing process was about to end, Sherfone immediately used Phantom Kill and had his doppelganger secretly run over to and wait at the other side. Time slowly passed. Sherfeng's heart began to beat furiously. He was but a lowly Tier 1 class. Moreover, this was his first time trying to steal an item right from under the nose of a mythic monster. One mistake would definitely end with his death. Though Sherfone did not mind losing a little EXP, he was deeply afraid of losing his equipment, particularly the 7 luminaries ring and the heavenly dragon's breath. Neither of these items were bound to his character. After he died, there was a very high possibility of either of these 2 items dropping. However, if he unequipped these 2 items, he would lose his edge to steal the treasure. It was a gamble. While Sherfone waited quietly. After the Orc King chanted the final verse of his incantation, suddenly, the countless runes wrapped around this treasure. In the next instant, the golden divine glow that had originally surrounded this treasure disappeared, revealing a simple and unadorned crystal ball. When Orc King Trezek's eyes landed on this crystal ball, the excited smile on his face became even more prominent. However, just as the Orc King was about to step towards the crystal ball, Feng's doppelganger abruptly dashed towards it. The doppelganger was extremely fast. It had taken only an instant to cross the distance of 100 yards. A little tier 1 ant dares to try for my god crystal? Die. Orc King Trezek revealed a disdainful sneer as he unsheathed the blood-red great sword from his back. Transforming into a flash, Trezek suddenly appeared before Feng's doppelganger. Even though the doppelganger had already activated Windwalk, it was still as slow as a turtle compared to the Orc King. Trezek felt nothing but disdain for a tier 1 ant like Feng. Hence, the Orc King decided to annihilate this little rat to avoid any taint to his god crystal. Without waiting for Trezek to take action, the doppelganger activated Defensive Blade. Feng's deductions had indeed been accurate. The difference in attributes between them was simply too massive. Before the doppelganger could even raise its sword to defend itself, Trezek's great sword struck the doppelganger. Although Feng had grasped the flowing water realm and had even learned flowing water acceleration, there was a qualitative difference between himself and the Orc King Trezek. In front of absolute power, all tricks were useless. The Orc King's attributes were dozens of times higher than Feng's. Even if Feng's techniques were more impressive, their effects were limited. In the blink of an eye, Defensive Blade's block charges had been exhausted. Immediately after, a streak of red light cut across the doppelganger. Truly, without being able to resist, Feng's doppelganger had been defeated. However, while Trezek dealt with the doppelganger, Feng had already activated Windwalk and used a speed scroll. He had even activated Blade Liberation, increasing his agility by 80%, and activated the additional skill of the Flame Boots, Flame Rush, increasing his movement speed by an additional 100%. At this moment, Feng was faster than even wind itself. By the time the Orc King killed the doppelganger, less than 20 yards remained between Feng and the treasure. Despicable! Trezek immediately discovered Feng. Spinning around, he dashed towards Feng. Although Feng was very fast, 2 to 3 times faster than his doppelganger, compared to the Orc King, however, he was still as slow as a snail. Sure enough, just as Feng was around 3 yards away from the treasure, Trezek suddenly appeared behind him, his great sword swinging down at the little rat. However, Feng had long since prepared for this moment. Before this, he had activated the Aura of Earth. At the instant he was discovered, he used absolute defense, becoming invulnerable for 5 seconds. Now that Feng was invincible, he did not have to worry about any attacks towards him. While shouldering the Orc King's attacks, he grabbed the crystal ball and stuffed it into his bag. Trezek grew indignant at this sight. The violent aura that surged forth from his body caused even Feng to grow breathless. If he were not in an invulnerable state right now, he would have long since died. With the God Crystal in hand, Feng immediately swapped the Aura of Earth to the Aura of Space and activated space movement. He then jumped into the spatial crack that appeared and left the Towers of Death. Chapter 512 Killing 2 Birds with 1 Stone. Chapter 512 Killing 2 Birds with 1 Stone. Darkness arrived in God's domain once more. The lights in White River City shone brilliantly. After the night had arrived, aside from a small number of experts and elite parties grinding in the fields, the majority of players could only head back to the city to rest. While it was lively in White River City, the liveliest area, without a doubt, was the Candlelight trading firm. As for the reason behind the Candlelight trading firm's popularity, that was due to the basic strengthened armor kits. Although the basic strengthened armor kits were not as powerful as the basic mana armor kits, the latter was simply too scarce. It could not compete with the large number of basic strengthened armor kits available at the Candlelight trading firm every day. Inside a high-class bar a short distance from the Candlelight trading firm, Yin-Yang sat on the second-floor open-air terrace, gazing at the Candlelight trading firm with a smile on his face. "I want to see just how long you can hold out." Yin-Yang laughed, his expression clearly displaying his arrogance. Initially, Yin-Yang had been slightly worried that the Candlelight trading firm's flourishing business would show no signs of ending. If that were so, it would not be easy to deal with the firm in the future. However, During the process of poaching the firm's workers, Feng Xianyang had discovered a secret, a fatal weakness of the trading firm. And that secret was that only 3 people in the trading firm knew how to produce the basic strengthened armor kit. With just 3 people, it was simply impossible to satisfy the demands of the large number of players in White River City. Even if it were possible, a long time would be required to do so. By then, players would have outgrown their need for the kits. Knowing this fatal secret, Feng Xianyang began to spend large sums of money to purchase the basic strengthened armor kits, buying as many as he could. First, he wanted to deplete the Candlelight trading firm's stockpile. As long as the firm no longer had any basic strengthened armor kits remaining, the firm's popularity would fall and limit its business. Although he had to invest a massive sum of coins, the basic strengthened armor kits he bought were not completely useless. On the contrary, they were particularly helpful when raiding team dungeons. Secondly, aside from striving to establish their own guild residences, the various guilds in Starmoon City also strived to accumulate sufficient money to purchase the city's golden lands. Other than that, these guilds were also continuously raiding large-scale dungeons, improving their guild's popularity and equipment. Meanwhile, other than giving the basic strengthened armor kits to his own teams, Feng Xianyang also set aside a portion, selling them to other cities. There was no Candlelight trading firm branch in other cities, so there were no basic strengthened armor kits available there. With Underworld's channels, Feng Xianyang had sold these kits to the various guilds of other cities. When these guilds saw the kits, they fought tooth and nail to purchase them. As a result, he made a huge profit by reselling the kits. It was truly killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only could he deplete the Candlelight trading firm's stockpile of armor kits, but he could also profit from reselling them. How could this possibly go wrong? However, as he celebrated his plan, he had also gained a deep understanding of how fearsome the Candlelight trading firm was. Fortunately, the Candlelight trading firm was only in White River City, and there were only 3 forgers capable of producing the basic strengthened armor kits. Should the trading firm ever resolve these 2 problems, it could definitely dominate Starmoon Kingdom's market. At that time, who could possibly compete with the Candlelight trading firm? Feng Xianyang could not hold back his envy. Why isn't the Candlelight trading firm mine? Feng Xianyang held a deep hatred towards Melancholic's smile. If the Candlelight trading firm had agreed to cooperate, it would have been his possession by now. With the money he could earn through the trading firm, his position within Underworld would also soar. At that time, those currently above him would be at his beck and call. Humph. Did you think that, just because you refused to sell the trading firm to me, I would be helpless against you? The firm will fall into my hands. Feng Xianyang could already picture the moment he grasped the rights to the Candlelight trading firm, and it would only be a matter of time before all of Underworld's power and Starmoon Kingdom would fall under his control. At that time, it would be child's play to deal with a combat guild like Zero Wing. Just as Feng Xianyang enjoyed the wine of victory, a slightly chubby middle-aged man in pompous clothing sat down beside him. Young Master Feng, may I know why you have called me here today? Although the middle-aged man was only level 10, barely reaching the minimum requirement to enter a city, his body radiated a distinct shrewdness. In particular, those beady little eyes of his greatly resembled that of a wily old fox. How is the progress of the task I assigned you? Feng Xianyang asked softly. Young Master Feng, rest assured, I have already discussed things with many members of the Candlelight trading firm. Although only over a dozen or so advanced forging apprentices have officially defected to our side, many have expressed their intentions of doing so. I believe that in the near future, many more advanced forging apprentices will willingly defect to our side. At that time, the Candlelight trading firm will show signs of supply shortages. When the firm's popularity falls, it will become even easier for us to poach its members. If they run out of workers, even with a good shop and the basic strength and armor kits, expansion will be impossible. The middle-aged man chuckled. Good, you've done well. As long as you succeed, you will receive your fair share of benefits. Feng Xianyang nodded with satisfaction. Meanwhile, Inside one of the forging rooms of the Candlelight trading firm, Melancholic frowned, obviously worried. Just moments ago, several more advanced forging apprentices had requested to dissolve their contracts. Moreover, these few advanced forging apprentices all held rare forging designs. Although these people had to pay a compensation fee that was over a dozen times the value of the forging designs they had learned, it was still a massive loss for the Candlelight trading firm. It had not been easy for the firm to get its hands on these forging designs. Without these commodities, how was the firm supposed to retain its customers? Truly despicable. I didn't expect to have nurtured so many traitorous bastards. I should never have let these people learn those forging designs. Melancholic smile gnashed her teeth. She deeply regretted focusing on these people, supplying them with rare forging designs and allowing them to become advanced forging apprentices so quickly. Suddenly, Sherfong opened the door to the forging room and entered. However, due to his silence, by the time Melancholic smile had noticed him, he already stood right in front of her. Guild leader. Melancholic smile called out in surprise. Why are you here? Look at how distracted you are. Did you encounter some trouble? Sherfong asked, laughing. Sherfong was in an extremely good mood. After stealing the god crystal from the mythic monster Orc King Trezek and escaping with his life, he had made a beeline for White River City, afraid that the Orc King would catch up to him and finish him off. Now that he had returned to White River City, even if the Orc King did catch up to him, it was impossible for him to invade the city. Guild leader, I'm useless. I failed to live up to your expectations. To think that I have been nurturing so many ungrateful bastards. Regret filled Melancholic Smile's eyes. Sherfong had entrusted so many rare forging designs to her, and had even repeatedly stressed that she should only let those who were trustworthy to learn them, yet, in the end. Listening to Melancholic Smile's mumbling, Sherfong could not help but laugh. So, that's what's going on. No problem. Although we lost some rare forging designs, haven't we earned several million credits in return? Sherfong smiled calmly. He then took out a wad of forging designs, tossing them onto the stone platform. Since Overwhelming Smile wishes to poach our advanced forging apprentices who have learned rare forging designs, let them have at it. If they can afford it, let them poach as many members as they want. I welcome them to do so. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.